Hi and welcome everyone. This is Varley at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Monday, December 2nd, 2024. This is show number 201 called Look Up, Cloaking Craft in Florida and Australia, Part 3. It has highlights from July 2021 through April 2022. What I'm doing is a little 4-part series here where I'm recapping and pulling out the best of the best, if you will, from my first 198 sky shows on this channel, Lavender Sky Panther here. And those first 198 shows are much like this. We're in this format where I just narrate some slides in a slideshow. I go in detail and call out specific things that I've been observing over the more than 4.5 years. Just strange sky anomalies, cloaking craft and objects happening in the skies, other things too. Also, I touch on some nature observations here and there, and I also like to include a Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page, and I will put some of those in this show as well. Just because the intent as I start off each show is just to bring some new awareness maybe, or even if you already know about it, it's just very fascinating to see some of the specific examples that I show, and also just to bring something good to your life with the good messages. So we'll get into this. Just to let you know, you can obviously join in on this little series. You can start watching at any of the parts. Part 4 will hopefully come out in a few days. But you don't have to start necessarily sequentially, going like 1, 2, and part 3 in order. However, I do recommend it because it is the actual, start of my show way back when, in 2020, and it then progresses, it progresses on through till the now. And so the very first show will start why, I even started this whole thing and give you a little bit of a better explanation. Here I'm just going to say that what you're about to see is original slides, original photos. I just go out and do my sky observations at all hours of the day and night, and I just take photos with my camera phone. And what I do is, wherever possible in the original shows, I show you the original on one side, and then I show you enhancements or progressions of that photo. So that means that I'll take the original photo and I'll just edit attributes of the photo, such as color saturation, brightness, and contrast. And really that's about it. And then what happens is we start to see objects. If you look at the screen with me, you'll see objects start to appear. So they'll get real solid, and then you'll just see wispy, what I call cloaking material, kind of cling to them or form a border around it, what looks like a sky imprint if it's not an object. And that material, cloaking material, I'm just going to refer to as plasma. For me, that means something that's a little bit heavier and denser than just water vapor like on clouds, and it clings to things, to help cloak them. And that's just my, description for it. Now, in this particular scene, I guess we'll just jump right in. This one, I did select it for the cover for many reasons. I'm going to show you some alternate cover slides I was toying with for this show. That's often what I did too in my earlier 198 shows. There'd be a lot of really great examples that could have gone for the cover. And I, would show, oh, this was like a runner-up, because sometimes I had a hard time choosing. But in this case, I went on a little boat tour. I hadn't been on one forever, in a bay. So this is salt water, and this is like a key in the distance. And so I had a feeling when I went on this boat trip with others, I just had a feeling I was going to start to see a lot of cloaking craft, and it sure did present that day. So this happens to be one of them. This is incredibly low over the water. It's got a very straight line. It has symmetry to it, and it has intelligent design for sure. And there's no way this could be confused for an aircraft, a plane, a helicopter, a drone, nothing. The size was too big. It was silent. There was no noise associated with it whatsoever. It was not that far from me. This is not a great zoom. I am zoomed in, but it wasn't, really far off in the distance. It was fairly close. And so that's why I'm just saying that, and other reasons you'll see coming up. You'll see that it was a cloaking craft. Also, up here we have another cloaking craft. We have kind of symmetry toward the tail end. Different color signatures and vapor type things start happening, so it shows me something's kind of emerging, coming in or out of cloak. And then up here we have like a more or less, right angle in a straight line. Up here there's a bigger, darker object up even above it. So I'm just going to say there's multiple cloaking craft going on in this scene. Anyway, let's move along and get into the heart of the show. First, I'm just going to show you a couple of alternate cover slides I was toying with. You see which one you would have put the best, or if you would have voted the same one as me or not. Here's another one. Now, this is a little fuzzy on a bigger scale. It gets a little bit mappy. However, the cloud was really clear. You're going to see a better example of this coming up in the show. But I have never, this is the only time I've captured something that looked like this. It's so, like, luminescent. It's like a little jewel sitting there, almost like, that would be a gem on a ring, if you put little prongs around it. But it's very fascinating, and the more you look, the more you see, like it has like a little structured network of little holes and like in a grid, so it's really fascinating. Anyway, we'll see more examples of this, but I was also toying with this as a kind of intriguing cover. And then we have this one. This one's a little confusing if you don't see the context, the bigger context of the photo. But if you kind of squint your eyes, you'll see this is a big sphere, and it has like a rigid structure to it, almost like a netting over it with little points. Just very fascinating, and it can no way be confused with just a regular cloud. So that's what I was going for too, with putting these up as possible covers. Okay, give me, sorry, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Now I'm going to run through a lot of these fairly quickly, because the intent is just to give you a little taste of what went on in the shows. Again, this is, if I didn't say it already, this show is going to cover shows 100 through 150 of those earlier 198 shows. And so here's an example, though, of the upper left-hand corner is an original photo, and then moving to the right and down and actually over to the lower left, you'll see a progression of where I just, like in the upper right-hand corner, I started to put more color saturation and contrast. And then just more things pop out, in a better way, and you start to see even more detail, things hiding in this mist, or this dense plasma and other, kind of particulate in the sky. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I do invite you to go back to the original shows, because I do cover each slide in detail there. But what I will say is, if you see anything coming up in the slides, you're like, oh, I want to know where that is, but you don't know which show it's in, just you can feel free to email me, and I can point you in the right direction, so you don't have to go through each of the 100, or 50 shows that I'm presenting. Anyway, this particular show, it came from, sometimes I will include the cover slide for it. It comes from Sky's Humming. Now, what I want to get to is, as we move through the progression, is just looking down in the lower right-hand corner. This whole overall figure just looks like kind of like a goldfish or some kind of guppy or whatever. But it's absolutely, to me, a cloak and craft. We've got a sharp right angle in there. We have reflectance on some kind of machine part popping up toward the end. And you can just see the difference between more solid object and then this cloaking material or plasma, which is just kind of wafting around it. I know probably the technical word is wafting, but to me it feels like wafting, so I'm going to say wafting. Wafting around this thing, and so something else is sailing across. Now, what became really clear that we're dealing with cloaking craft or objects, sometimes it's very clear, like it's going to be a solid object. Some things we're about to see look a little more ephemeral, more of a phenomenon, like more almost supernatural, the way that they cloak, or it's almost like they come in and out of dimension even. Or coming in from a different frequency. In this case, what caught my attention with this overall figure anyway was how incredibly low in altitude it was, and it also had this dark gray color. Now, most of these photos, when I say Florida, are going to be in Miami. Some are going to be in North Florida, and then we're also going to have some from Australia. But when I refer to the ones around Miami, this is a subtropical to tropical climate. Back in the day, I've been on this planet many decades, and I'm familiar with this area for equal amount of time. We would just get big puffy white clouds, cumulus clouds. They would just kind of go across, or they might billow up into thunderheads, kind of anvil-shaped clouds, and become very stormy. But never were they this low and this like gray, so that was a kind of trend I was seeing at about this time. Let's move along though, because we got a lot of great examples to get to. Now, upper left-hand corner, again, original. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. You'll see it. If I just have an A and then I go to 8.1, the A, for example, will mean the original photo, and then it starts to enhance and progress. As you see over here, I put original photo or enhanced wherever I can. In the original shows, you'll see it more. Anyway, upper left-hand corner is the original, and I just noticed strange colors, strange cloud movement, suspected there's cloak and craft going on, because as I've said in other little shows and formats, if you just go out 5 minutes a day, wherever you are in the entire world here, and look up, you will start to see things. You'll start to see strange patterns emerging, things that don't look like natural clouds, things that defy natural like wind and light physics and movements. And if you just take a picture, even if you don't think something's there, but you might sense something is there, and then you go inside and you just do some minor tweaking of the levels, like I mentioned, you can do that even on the phone. It doesn't have to be on a more desktop situation with a program like Photoshop or something. You can also do adjustments on your phone just play around with upping and lowering the levels of contrast, brightness, and color saturation, and you'll start to see stuff like this. So the more I started, looking at this, I sensed something was there right away. But what I did not expect to see with doing the tweaking of the levels in the photo was, look at this, it's like a hole or depression, and then this bright, vivid pink color in contrast to whatever's going up here. Now, sometimes you see it's a little bit mappy and fuzzy. That was to the naked eye. The trees are in clear focus, and you can see it's just kind of fuzzy up there. Well, to me, that's just a clever way that these bigger objects, because I see a bigger object in here, is just cloaking. And they'll throw a lot of extra particulate in there in a haze, so you can't see what's going on exactly. But again, I think all of this is a part of like a slow drip process to let people like me, and hopefully you now, if you haven't been doing this already, really look up at your skies and start to notice these things. Like I say, even if it's 5 minutes a day, heck, 3 minutes, just give it good time, good looking around without being distracted or looking at a device, and you're going to really start to see some interesting things, and you're going to start to get attuned with what's going on above the more that you do it. But anyway, all that to say, yeah, you'll start to see things, and hopefully you'll start documenting things too. Maybe even start your own YouTube channel if you don't have it, because the more of us that are out here looking at stuff every day, the better. We can share and compare notes. So wherever you are in the world, when you look up, even if you don't think something's there, if you took a picture and then go do this simple little exercise, you're going to see stuff popping up that you couldn't have imagined. And then you're going to start to key in like I did and start to watch for this stuff. And to me, it's just fun to go from like this over here, where it looks like, maybe all gray, kind of nothing going on, to, wow, this popped out. It's almost like magic, right? So anyway, enjoy if you start doing this too. And let me know in the comment section below if you're starting to do this and what your channel name is. That is if, this channel has been shadow banned from the very beginning, so a lot of times comments don't even post. It's not me censoring, it's the platform, unfortunately, on YouTube. So just know that as well. If you do want to get a comment to me and it's not posting, feel free to email me. I'll put the the links, or not the links, the email addresses in the description area below. All right, down in the lower left, this was a show called Color Wheels. There was a rainbow occurring, and it was more than that though. And this is the enhanced version. As I did that, I just saw all kinds of colors and weird little objects floating around. Lower right hand corner is more of a panorama. It's a little distorted when I do the panorama, but not by much in this one. And it was just the lower photo here is the original. The top one is the highlighted. So we'll just look to the highlighted. It just, well, sorry, we'll jump back down to the original. I just saw these weird forms that aren't natural clouds, clearly, and they weren't smoke, from anywhere. Just really strange. That's really what I was looking at. But when I did the enhancement, I also noticed all the color variation. So it got some bright light source from the back, and then it, also becomes warm tone and like raspberry and pinks. But then again, looking at this, those aren't natural clouds. So the more you look, you see like this harder object, more solid object is a craft sitting in there. There's another little one like flying away. So the more you start to look in the overall formation, sometimes it's just a lot of different craft kind of making an overall formation. All right, let's keep moving. Now here's an example of one of the Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day pages. I am going to read this one. I may not read all of any of the ones that pop up in the show. I'll just read them as I feel guided. But this one is very relevant to right now, and we just saw the rainbow in the previous image, so I am going to go ahead and read this. This is excerpts from Warriors of the Rainbow, as related by Lee Brown from the Rainbow Prophecy. So I'm making that distinction of who was delivering the message, because there's a thing called the Rainbow Prophecy, and I don't know how many versions of it out there might exist, or how many versions might have been truncated, or we're not seeing the full passage. This is kind of a page 2, so I'm only going to read a very short excerpt of just some very key passages that were meaningful to me to share. But there's a much longer, passage to all of this, and I recommend you go find the original. So let me just read the excerpts. The stone tablets of the yellow race of people are kept by the Tibetans in Tibet. If you went straight through the Hopi reservation to the other side of the world, you would come out in Tibet. The Tibetan word for sun is the Hopi word for moon, and the Hopi word for sun is the Tibetan word for moon. And just as an aside, I'm going to throw in there, I did check that out. I think it's Dawa, D-A-W-A, is Hopi for sun, and it's Tibetan for moon. So that part checks out. All right, so here we go. But we're in that time now. We're between the first light of a new day and the sunrise. The sunrise is about to come, and when it comes up, everyone is going to see it. But you know how it is in the village. There's a few people that get up early, and there are some that sleep until noon. I'm probably one of those that sleeps until noon. So he said at this time, you're going to see that things will speed up, that people on the earth will move faster and faster. Grandchildren will not have time for grandparents. Parents will not have time for children. It will seem like time is going faster and faster. The elders advised us that as things speed up, you yourself should slow down. The faster things go, the slower you go, because there's going to come a time when the earth is going to be shaken a third time. The Great Spirit has been shaking the earth 2 times. The First and Second World Wars, to remind us that we are a human family, to remind us that we should have greeted each other as brothers and sisters. We had a chance after each shaking to come together in a circle that would have brought peace on earth, but we missed that. In the cycle of time, from the beginning to the end, this time we are in now will change the purification of all things. They say this is the hardest time to live, but it is also the greatest honor to be alive, to live and see this. I'm getting a little choked up because that is gorgeous. I know a lot of us out there are complaining, things are so hard, things are getting very strange out there. Why am I here? It's like a prison planet. I hear that phrase tossed around a lot. I don't subscribe to that. I do believe that we are here with purpose. Any of us here now that are alive to see this, it's a miracle that we're here right in the here and now and alive to see what's about to come. And it will be a time like no other, and it will be well worth seeing. And I do believe we came intentionally to be in this front row, if you will, to see all that's happening. But anyway, let's move along. All right, so upper left-hand corner is the original. Upper right, we have enhancement. We start to see different color signatures pop up, different kinds of things that don't look like natural cloud. And this particular one, it's a little fuzzy and hazy. It's hard to get at what's going on in here. But I do see like a rigid, pointed, elliptical form, almost like a squashed almond shape, if you will. So I know there's cloaking craft happening here. It even looks like there's like a sphere happening. So what happens too with a lot of these things, oh, and down here you start to see a rigid shape with, straight lines, so something's cloaking in here. What happens, I forgot to mention that when you start seeing these cloaking craft emerge, where they become a little more clear, they only kind of present to you for like a couple seconds or like a millisecond. You happen to look up and catch it, and then it fades and like dissipates back into the mist, if you will. So it's almost like whatever's up there, when you lock eyes on it, they know that you're looking at it. They meaning some ET race. And, they're just showing you, giving you a hint. They're letting the veil drop on this thing, or the cloak drop just enough for you to see it, and then it just fades away again. So I forgot to mention, it's very important. You're not just going to see, only one case did I have something like linger for 20 minutes and start to morph and change and really show me what it was. And that happened, that's on the cover of the previous show. But other than that, these things just kind of wisp in, they'll kind of show you a little bit and then, camouflage back further. Okay, now the lower left, I also include now and then crystals and different oracle cards as a part of the messages for the day, words, wisdom, and spirit of the day. And I guess I'll read this one because it's short enough. But here we have malachite and some clear crystal quartz and some petrified wood. The overall message of this particular day was lightning. And I'll leave this to you to go ahead and read, further and see if anything is meaningful to you for the here and now. But I'll just read this little Hopi Native American prophecy quote. And it says, "When the earth is ravaged and the animals are dying, a new tribe of people shall come unto the earth from many colors, creeds, and classes, and who by their actions and deeds shall make the earth green again. They shall be known as the warriors of the rainbow." So that's just kind of like a footnote onto, the previous slide I was showing. Now let's move along. All right, we're going to hop over to Australia for a bit. I say back out to Australia again, because I had a wonderful friend of the channel called Yowie Grrowlz, sending in some amazing photos. As a part of these first 198 shows, you'll see it sprinkled in now and then, coming in from Australia. And Yowie Grrowlz took some really incredible photos, some really great observations, and I think a few more are going to come in this show. But anyway, upper left-hand corner is one example where Yowie Grrowlz just said clouds felt off, something felt strange. And we're just going to cover, we'll look at item A over here. you just see a clear point. It's like, it looks like a walnut shape. So we look to the right with enhancement, and we see it at 8.1, definitely like a little walnut shape sitting on top of something. So a lot of times when we just see cloud mass like this, and we suspect they're, pretty clear symmetrical objects, geometrical objects happening in there, and suspect cloaking craft, some of these longer things are a bigger ship, and there might be a separate little craft just docked on top of it, or sitting on top of it. That's what I think is happening here, because we have a point here and a point here, little holes. And some of these holes could be like exhaust. They could be the very holes that they're shooting out all of this camouflage, plasma cloud with. Who knows? Could just be windows. And then over here, actually, I will jump to B.1 because you see whiter points. Sometimes they look crystalline and really bright. And those are little machine parts, too. Something is popping out toward us, toward the foreground here. So I know that those are machine parts. And then we have like straight lines and things. So there's enough going on in here to have told me right away that we're dealing with cloaking craft with other little craft, on top of it. Now we're going to keep moving. Okay, now we're back in Miami. Now, upper left-hand corner was just this beautiful glow, and I could tell that we have warm signatures, but also some pinkish signatures and whiter ones, just to the naked eye. So then when we go to the right and have some enhancement, bam, we really see, the different color signatures happening. And then going down to the lower right, there just became like with certain, upping and lowering of the attributes, the photo that I was getting to, I really like exaggerated it so that, this blew out all white so I could get at what this was over here. And then with this particular level of adjustments, enhancements of the attributes, I could, pull out that there's a craft blowing up out of this, whatever's happening down here. And you can see it. It's got a point to it. We got diagonal lines. It has a symmetry. So that's a cloaking craft that's decided to burst out of this cloaking, situation down here. And it's actually up here. And we can only see it, really more clearly when we do the enhancements on the photo. But it's like hiding in plain sight, if you will, right? Now the lower left-hand corner, the original is on the left and the enhanced is on the right. Just again, observing strange movements. Like you're not going to have a vertical thing coming up as something is coming across on an angle in a natural cloud formation. You just don't have two opposing trajectories. So if it's just natural clouds. Here, this almost looks like a little shark or a little dolphin, with a fin on the back and the tail and a bulbous front, or a little baby whale or something. So I have to believe it also has like a shadow line to it, that's like some type of object. And I would say that that's maybe a separate craft piggybacking onto a bigger cloaking craft. Because look at this. We have a clear point. That's another clear geometry, forming below it. So lots of weird little stuff. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what everything is, but I can definitely point out when we've got geometry and things that just aren't typical clouds. All right, let's keep going. This was extraordinary. The bottom is the original. The top is with enhancement. Now, what was pretty remarkable about this is obviously the colors. Look how much lavender indigos and like raspberry magentas. But even to the naked eye, just everything felt otherworldly. There felt like a very distinct otherworldly glow, something a little more exceptional than even all of the other extraordinary cloaking craft I've been capturing. Now and then, it's not every time, there's an otherworldly glow and presence felt. It's more in the family of the really otherworldly cyan and purple indigo and white blue, and it comes along. So to me, this is a very specific type of ET or extraterrestrial presence, and a different type of way that they maybe power their craft. It feels very, very different. It feels very special. It feels beautiful. It feels euphoric when you just feel this energy come in the sky. That's all I can say. I haven't had it happen many times, but not like every day. But when they show up, I'll just say positives, absolutely positive, beautiful, vibes coming off this thing. You know it. You don't miss it. So anyway, here's another case of this. So we have like this big, it looks like an opening almost. It's a very interesting pattern. I mean, there's plasma cloaking something bigger beyond. And I would love, like I say always, whether it's this particular race coming on the scene, I'll just say with whatever craft technology they have, the very euphoric kind, or it's something else. It's just, I would just love to see all the smoke and mirrors, quote unquote, blown away, so we could really just see in pure crystal detail what these craft look like, and I think that day's coming. So I think I got sidetracked by myself in an earlier slide. What I wanted to say is, There's a slow drip to all of this, so like in my own experience, I was just shown something extraordinary at the very beginning, but then not shown more detail until as I progressed, through part 2, 3, and 4, to see more and more machine parts and things. People like me, there are many of us out there, you might be one of them, we're being shown more and more and more, but in little bites, just a slow drip. So I wasn't shown machine parts right at the beginning of my looking up. I was just shown weird things, and then slowly toward part 4, I see more and more machine parts, right? So that's just the way this disclosure is working. It's not looking toward any officialdom, if you will. We don't need to look to any of these systems to tell us what's going on. All of us have our innate knowing, our innate memory of where we really came from, which was not just this planet. I think all of us know we came from somewhere else that we call home, but we can't quite maybe put a finger on what that is. Our little God spark that is in our heart space came from somewhere else. It did not just come from this planet. So we know there is another home, and for each of us, there's the source home, source of all that there is, but then there are also other planets, other experiences that we have had in our, in our each of our own little memories in our collective memory. Anyway, all that to say, each of us who are starting to see these things in the sky, it's just going to be done like slow drips, so they can't just blow off all the plasma here and let us see what they are, straight up. They're just going to kind of maybe let the plasma fall away, wean away a little more, and then, slowly we'll start to see them, right? It's kind of like, instead of the shock technique of just jumping into a cold pool of water, maybe you just want to get your foot wet first and, ease your way in, and I think that's how we're doing it here. That's why things are being shown slowly, and that's why I'm doing this show, to help share what I'm seeing, because I feel that it was, I was kind of activated, if you will, given a new pair of eyes, and that it's just my honor and pleasure to share this with humanity now and get the word out, and hopefully all of you are starting to look up as well. Okay, here's another scene now. Upper left-hand corner is the original. It had a weird blue tinge to the whole sky. It did. It kind of toward the evening, I believe. And I just saw these weird, like feet or things sticking down below the cloud line. When I say cloud, I'm going to always say cloud in quotes, because there's always something hidden up in the skies. So again, no matter where you're in the world, you just take a picture, you're going to have something in your photo because of a craft nature, because they're everywhere. And one step back too, when I say they're everywhere, nothing to fear. I mentioned this in my other previous parts. Over the almost 5 years now, we'll just say, well over 4.5 years that I've been documenting cloaking craft and objects day in, day out, there's only been 2 or 3 times where I've been out there and I'm like, ooh, that thing doesn't feel good, I want to go inside. Otherwise, everything has felt fine, neutral, just fascinating, or even euphoric. So I'm going to say that based on my numbers alone, there are many more, way more benevolence or neutrals that outweigh anything that's negative out there. And we're fine. So no fear associated with any of this whatsoever. All right, let's keep going. So upper left-hand corner was the original. I thought, well, those things look weird, and they're parallel to each other. And then we look to the right, and with enhancement, we just see that that's not natural for stuff to be poking out, not natural for it to be this low in the sky. These are just regular trees. These aren't like giant trees. And then again, it had this otherworldly glow, and that's what we're seeing. It just turns this weird but beautiful cyan white, So there's something cloaking up in here for sure. Now, like I said, there's many forms and ways that these craft cloak. Some generate something that's I call staccato cloud effect, where you're looking and things look choppy and fuzzy to the naked eye, even though everything else is in focus. And it's just a way that they disrupt the atmosphere to cloak themselves, or more particulate might be dumped out, or there's many ways that they can cloak. Anyway, we'll move along. Lower left-hand corner is a different scene, different part of Miami, looking over a canal. And this just looked too linear and too like chopped apart, so in the distance. So I've, flagging it with some more enhancement. I see it looks like objects. We go with even more enhanced and we see this is what's going on. So these are not natural clouds. They're far too low. They have geometric shapes. They have hard lines. They have shadow and darkness to them and reflectance. So we're dealing with some objects. These are also really skinny, strips. I think they might be the edges of a bigger cloaking object that's happening in between here. So again, they cloak in many different ways. All right, upper left original, upper right enhanced. Look what really pops out. when we, move to the enhancement situation. So again, this on the original side, just, we have peeling away of like strips, and clouds don't look like that in this area. And so I see why when we go to the enhancement, because here you see hard edges, you see reflectance, and this looks like a perfect, beautiful, slick, flattened almond-shaped object tucked in here. So this could be multiple craft. This could be one bigger one, and this thing is just riding on it, piggybacking in there. Or this whole thing is one thing. I think it's many different craft kind of like banking together to make one overall form, because over here it also looks like a separate craft. But see what you think. With any of this, I'm going to give you my interpretation, what I see, but of course some of these can be looked at many different ways because we're not seeing them with all of the cloaking material off of them. Down here too, it looks like a little stick-like thing. Maybe that's exhaust, maybe that helps blow out, some cloaking material. Then we go up here, and again, I don't want to get in too much depth analyzing each photo here because I do that in each of the individual shows, but I might forget and start to here and there, so give me a pass on that, bear with me. But look it up here, like here we have white material, but then it gets interrupted. Well, this starts to look like a spherical, or some type of ellipsoid of a different cloaking material in front. So that could very well be a different craft that's just kind of coming in or out of state, of solidity to the human eye. But it's absolutely something disrupting this here. Anyway, we'll move along. Lower left, again, kind of looking over water, just over at overall scene in the horizon, and at 8.1 something's just a little more solid. And in this case I was also just looking at the color variety and how there's like this big thick blanket covering the sun. And that's another thing I cover in other shows, sun versus the artificial sun. There's a second sun. There's a lot going on. And at this time that I was taking a lot of photos diligently, day and night, sunrise, sunset, everything in between, I was noticing that, at key points where you wanted to see the actual ball, if you will, of the sun, you never could, because like clockwork, this whole level of deep blanket would come and obscure your ability to see the sun as it rose and set. And that was by intention. That's artificial cloud cover. All right, we'll go to the lower right, and this was just a moment, I think I feature it later, where we just have an extraordinary, all kinds of color signatures, which we shouldn't have this much of an explosion of different color signatures. We have like a dark beam beyond, we have reddish orange, we have golden tone, and we have white. And then we have something kind of otherworldly, like a cyan blue white happening in here. So to me, this is a interdimensional craft happening, kind of overlaid in the midst of all of this, because it was like a milky white film effect, which doesn't happen, with any of the other natural kind of things happening. And look at this, is a burst of white happening above when we still have golden below it. Just a lot going on in that scene. I think this is a craft right here. Okay, now we have another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here. What I will do is just touch on the one crystal of carnelian, which just says, feed your creativity. Your creative side is calling to you. Is there anything holding you back from letting your creativity run wild? So that's all I'm kind of called to give you the message on this one. But do revisit this if you like after the show airs. Okay, now upper left-hand corner to the right, with enhancement. Again, just at the original, you just feel something's off. You feel something looks like it has patterning to it. And, the way the diffuse, you got a ton of particulate just hiding stuff. It's not normal cloud cover for this area. So, something's hiding in there. And with, the enhancement of the digital cameras, we can reveal and expose what's in there in a good way. So, yeah, this is not any kind of natural cloud. We've got darker color, and then we've got this weird other color. That's not the sun or any effects of the sun. That's self-illumination on whatever this thing is. And then we start to see kind of another object down in here, straight line, just the whole thing, does raise the eyebrows. Now, this is an example where there's so much particulate, we can't get to really clear examples. But I can tell you this is an overall assembly, whether it has individual craft hiding in it, like I think this is, coming up to a point here, because we have straight lines. I think there's a bunch of cloaking craft kind of hiding all along a bigger craft. All right, lower left-hand corner, again, left side of it is the original. The right, boom, pops out with enhancement. And we see like a more, straight line, and then a straight line coming off this way with weird texture happening in here. So I'm going to say that's got to be cloaking craft or object. Go to the right, again, I took this picture because it just felt like a weird, it's not, I couldn't detect this, I didn't know as pink and raspberry was going to pop out as in the enhancement, but I did feel a slight pink glow happening in here. I started to see some patterning in here, enough to do this to the right, and boy did it pop out, right? Just with some very little bit of upping and lowering of the enhancement of color saturation and things, and we can see this. So this is some other massive object beyond. I see like a stick, popping out over here. Weird texture and color. So again, this is an example where I'd love to see smoke and mirrors blown off this thing to see what it really is. And look at, we even see like a little cross figure here with these little depression pockets to show you something's going on there of intelligent design. Here, the upper left-hand corner, this just, again, it's the original photo. It just seemed weird how this beam was going straight up and just other weird activity happening all over the place. So with enhancement, we can see why. We've got this beam shooting up while we have a crack of a different color coming across. And then this starts to get really trippy, a little weird. So I think this, where my cursor is going, I see the end of a perfect pipe here. I see a hole. So that's like probably where exhaust or this cloaking material comes out. But, I can't quite see it because, again, we got different levels of cloaking. Here it's like a burst of light is interrupting what this overall shape is doing. But here at 8.1, I see the end of a pipe here as well. So I think that the overall craft is kind of like teardrop shaped on a side. And then we got other ways of cloaking to disrupt that. And then 8.12 also, there's like a, looks like a very thin, almost like a plane of paper. But it's a cloaking craft in more of triangular shape. There's even a little depression hole up here. And again, I'm just kind of hitting the highlights here, but in the shows themselves, I go in much more detail. Plus, you might see things I didn't pick up even as I go over the shows and narrate. So do take your time and, enjoy kind of looking around at some of these things. I do want to point out E.1, because if this in fact is a kind of like a walnut or a teardrop shaped craft overall, it would make sense that at E.1 there's some kind of insignia on the side of it. And over here, it starts to look a little organized. Or maybe it's just, other kinds of technology with the tubes shooting out plasma. But it definitely has like a wheel-like, like spokes coming out of it, like an organized shape. All right, now the lower left-hand corner, I'm not going to really read any of the messages, but I am just going to say that this is rainbow obsidian, if that's something you want to look further into. And we had Lemurian quartz. And then the message was number 27, or that could be a number 9 if that has any meaning for you right now. And the card was about the hunter. So again, if you go back to the original show, there's a full page slide on this. It'll be easier to read. And feel free to go visit that if you're drawn to do that. Okay, this one, upper left, we had like just to the naked eye, I could feel like a pinkish tone. These things seemed like straight lines. These things just didn't add up. So with enhancement, there's an otherworldly kind of overlay light happening. It's like strong raspberry here. It picks up again here. There's like a weird notch out also here. Just this whole thing feels very artificial. Looks like something zoomed out of here. It looks like a triangular shape at 8.1. A lot of weird stuff happening. Now, the lower two images are, we had the preview with the cover slide of the one on the right here. But on the left is the original to it. So you can just see things are muted out and played down a bit. But still something felt like otherworldly, like this milky white light happening in the middle. I knew something, some kind of phenomenon was happening. So that's why I looked to the right, and you can just see here's that milky glow. I do believe that's kind of a cloaking craft, kind of coming in and out of state. It's neither one, and that's why we're detecting it. So it hasn't come into sharper focus yet. And then we just have all this crazy other light patterning. How do we have a burst of white when we've got the yellow glow down there and coming up here and then going into reds? Something extraordinary is happening. Again, I can't give you any more detail than that, but maybe you have some insights on it as well. All right, upper left, again, original on the left, enhanced on the right. What's going on here? These are, again, the tree level. Out of nowhere, it started to be a trend in this phase of my, or a period of time of me observing the skies, where it just seemed like every other day, if not every day, just cloud material would erupt vertical out of nowhere and very close, only like a few blocks away or not even a mile away. And there's no machinery there creating it. So this is just spontaneously bursting up a very disrupted sky. So to me, that means Cloaking Craft is just announcing itself, coming in and out of frequency and state and just saying, hello, here we are, and there it is. And so with enhancement, we can see it. This is not normal cloud just erupting really low like this. And then we also start to see, the more you look, like this is an overall like spearhead shape. You know, there's a line moving up here and coming down here with like a notched thing, you know, down here. It's very symmetrical, almost like a Christmas tree, you know, like a graphic Christmas tree. And again, when you start to see some of these things, it's not just one craft, it's a collection of multiples forming an overall shape. It's very interesting how some of these cloak themselves. There's also interesting structure down here. This is symmetrical. We got straight line, so it looks like there's a overall kind of, you know, spear tip or dart or delta shaped craft here with something happening on top. All right, to the right hand side, again, left is the original. Look at, I mean, just all these weird little scratch traces going on in the sky. That's not natural. And then a more solid object down here. So with enhancement, I took out the color just to kind of look at it in a different way. And, you know, we have a symmetrical pointed craft here. We have other weird stuff happening. You know, C.1 is a craft as well, or object. Now, lower left-hand corner is zooming in on this little part over here where my cursor is, upper right-hand corner. We're zooming in on this part of the scene, and we have this weird little spherical thing and something kind of connected to it. And the more I look at this, when you see this line coming up and this line coming back, that's coming to a point, and that's symmetrical. So I think all within here, there's a cloak and craft. There might be one piggybacking on the top that's more solid. Then we got this line coming across, coming down an angle, and that looks like what we call a chemtrail, chemical filled trail. And I want to say, as I said in other shows, yes, there are chemical filled trails. And what I haven't been able to go measure or take readings of it, but what we're told, if you look around enough, is supposedly what's in there is a combination of strontium, barium, and aluminum. I don't know for a fact, but others on different sites have reportedly tested it. Could be. Okay, whatever it is, we know it's not great stuff because when it rains, it falls down on the ground, and you see some strange things with that. However, I also contend there are also camouflage trails where there might not be any toxins in there whatsoever, and they're just drawn as a red herring, if you will, in the sky so that by opposing parties, let's just say, to any of the benevolent craft, because they don't want you to see them. And they, like here, by looking at this, I'm probably more noticing the streak than I am of all of this happening below it. So it's kind of like a red herring, like, hey, a distraction, look over here so you don't see this bigger thing, you know, cloaking beyond. Now, I don't think it's whoever is in this cloaking craft, you know, throwing this out too as their own distraction, but I guess that's a possibility as well. Doesn't have to be an opposing party trying to take your attention away. In other examples, I see this streak, and it comes like it's like hitting right square onto like a bigger craft. A better example of it, I know this is a little bit a harder example to follow as it being cloaking craft, but I've noticed others, like say there's a big sphere here and this thing is leading right to it. Could it be that in another dimension there's some kind of battle going on and that's like the missile trajectory of them trying to hit this thing? I think that's possible. Anyway, so many things going on. There's other stuff cloaking craft having behind another kind of smudgy veil here. Again, each photo you look at, you could look on and on and on, and you start to see more and more new things. You know, what's this little skinny thing poking through this like plasma stuff? Again, it would be fun to see all of this blown away so we can just see what the bigger object is, right? Okay, here we get to the exciting part. We're going to tie this back into the cover. So upper left-hand corner is the original. I'm on a boat, and you can see the little roof of the boat. And so we're not very far from this thing. You know, there's this little clump of vegetation in the bay. And then there's, you know, part of the bay, part of another key along out there. But, you know, this was extremely low in the sky. You know, this was not incredibly far from us. So we go to the right and look at, with a little bit of enhancement, look what we see. This is a very solid object. We see a massive, bigger object with a straight, you know, line or hard edge here. You know, it's rounded up here at the top. It looks like maybe a little craft is springing off the top of that thing. These two parallel lines coming down at an angle when everything else is doing its own thing show you we've got intelligent design. So I'm going to say this is one larger craft. We also have different color signatures happening within this one thing. You know, we have this like tufted mess coming up to kind of hide the fact of what this overall thing is. And then this is so clearly a hard edge. Look, to the naked eye, this is what I saw over to the left. That's a hard line, a hard line. It's not any kind of thing like I mentioned at the intro. You know, it's not a glider, it's not an airplane, it's not a helicopter, it's not a drone. There's absolutely no noise whatsoever associated with this or this above. Okay? And it was within absolutely hearing range because you hear everything intensified over water. There was nothing. Now we go down to the lower left and we really see it. Straight line, like a tip to this thing, little thing happening at, I'll call the tail. And then look up here above. Now we see a perfect curve. It's almost like a fender on an old-fashioned bicycle wheel. And it looks like there's a hole with something pouring out of it. So maybe this is a bigger hole that just dumps all this plasma stuff out of it instead of those little pipes. That's what I suspect is happening. Then we have this whole clump over here next to this hardened object. And we have like a whiter thing, like I said in the cover, intro. That looks like a craft to me, where it's like a symmetrical tail, like a whole little thing happening. We have something else, a different kind of cloaking happening over other stuff. Because then we have another little object peeling off of this thing. So I think that's another little craft that's kind of like docking to something bigger above. So we go to this thing itself, and we look to the right, lower right-hand corner. And usually, sometimes with the different, levels of brightness and stuff, I can get at more detail on this thing itself, but I really couldn't. So we just know it couldn't be any more solid of an object with straight lines, and we start to see the plasma kind of wafted over the edge. I say wafted or wafting instead of waft or wafting. It's just I have to do it. Anyway, means clinging, kind of over this thing. What's exactly going on here? I would love to see that thing, but it looks like we have a little pipe end sticking out. So again, some of these things just cloak in pretty amazing ways. Some more obvious than others. All right, here we go one more time. So here's what I'm calling like a fender. I mean, it's like a perfect curve with a hole and something kind of dumping out of it. It's, anyway, how I'm reading that. Maybe you read it a little differently. And then we have the echo of a perfect curve over here as well. So we're dealing with intelligent design. Here's just one more look. Here we get it a little bit better at that, smoke and mirror effect, the plasma kind of clinging over to the outside of this thing. And this example, I think, is a perfect example where a lot of times things are a little more mysterious and nebulous, literally, how these things cloak. And I think other times they just straight out say, here we are, look at us, we want you to see us. There we go. Again, sometimes it's just like you see it for a second and it fades away. But in this particular example, it really, it stood out for quite a long time before it just slowly dissipated. Very fascinating. All right, upper left is just another view with this little cormorant, I think it is, in the front. Number 27, if that means anything to anybody, or number 9. But, we just see it again as it's at a slightly different angle, and and as it is, it's morphing at the same time a little bit. So we just kind of see little more things kind of poking up off of this thing as we go along. The lower picture here is just, I really blew out the brightness to try to get at any machine parts. So we have a stick coming out. We have, it looks like a pipe up here, like a little chimney stack or something. Just this thing was just so bizarre. Again, absolutely no sound associated with it, but you don't have a perfect edge like this, and all these little things happening with natural clouds. All right. Upper left-hand corner is as I think it was starting to break apart a bit and morph and change. Then I looked up, and I don't know if this is the same thing that's split in two, or another little piece ponied up to this thing. But whatever the case, because I looked away for a bit. But whatever the case, we look above, things still look kind of strange. We go to the upper right-hand corner. Things are happening up in there still. This could be like a craft on angle up there. We start to see this kind of hole in the cloud. It's a perfect triangle, equilateral triangle almost, and another kind of inverted one. So way back here, I suspect that's bigger craft even as well. And then, we look at this, and like I said, I look back, and I'm like, oh, did the thing split apart into two, or a different thing came along? So the lower left-hand corner, we see, regardless, it's two chunks of some type of cloaking thing going on, because here these little sticks poke up, and this is a perfect triangle poised sitting on top of them. So, and it's a clear hard-edged curve as an object. So what do you think is going on? This is also cloaking craft because it's a little pipe sticking out here as well. Okay, here's a different part of the bay. It just caught my attention. It was just nice as far as an overall visual, with the boats kind of almost equally spaced moving along the bay. But then I started seeing, a straight edge on the clouds, started seeing these two separate chunks. So I thought, okay, something felt weird up the upper left corner too. Something felt very strange with this overall quote-unquote cloud wall. So I looked to the right with extreme, enhancement, and we see these are two separate little objects, even like a little third splitting off here. I'm going to say those are cloak and craft. And then we have other little darker objects and things kind of hiding all in this mass. It just felt like it. So we'll go to better examples, but after doing this enough and looking at the sky enough, I can also just intuitively feel when we've got cloaking craft present. And actually here, depending on your monitor, how much your brightness is, you'll see This is actually an object. It almost looks like a human tooth with the little roots coming down, and it looks like it dropped out of a hole here. So, you know, we'll keep moving along. Oh, I forgot I was doing a blow up of this. And so anyway, enlargement. So here we go. We start to see a triangular shape. This is that little tooth-like shape I was talking about. Looks like it just came out of whatever this is. I think this is another bigger ship with this is like an opening, you know, for whatever reason, either for things to launch out of it or for observation. Just my feeling on that. I also see in the background, in the mist, if you will, through the veil of this heavy particulate wall, there's a straight line here and a straight angle here and a stick here, so more machine parts popping up. I think there's multiple craft hiding in this wall of whatever it is. Didn't feel like natural cloud. And then here we have like a right angle. Looks like a little tail on the end of a craft here, and another craft here, and another craft here. And this is like vapor trail coming out the back. Okay. This was coming in from the boat tour. The water in the upper left-hand corner, you see how low this overall assembly is. This erupting fan-shaped massive cloud is, again, not like a typical cloud form that I know from decades of living in this area. This over here looks like a perfect triangular craft, like shooting off. And lots of weird stuff was happening here. There's like a straight line going this way. We have kind of like a right angle here. So it was enough to show me there's stuff hiding all in this cloud. This is kind of perfectly round, although that's not so much out of the realm of a natural cloud, but it felt like it. And we're going to see why it felt odd. The more I zoomed in on A, we go to the right-hand side, there's something sitting on top of this perfect sphere. And then we have like this arm going up to something else here. So you just see all the different ways that different craft, they hide in different configurations within these overall quote-unquote cloud masses. D.1, there we go, vapor trail behind a triangular shaped craft. Lower left-hand corner, we're going to get at this A point. So something weird was happening on top of this quote-unquote ball, right? And here we go. They, whoever they is, ET, I'm just going to say it, there got to be ETs with this kind of level of development and size and scale of things happening. Showed me, you know, allowed me to see this perfect shape just for like a split second. And I took the picture and then I looked back up and I couldn't see it, like these other clouds came over it, right? So anyway, we've got an angle, like a truncated cap to it. There's something like perched on top of this thing. So I look to the right and there we go. You know, you can just see it really clear. I mean, it even looks like there's two holes here and here. We've got multiple cloaking craft all over the place. This looks like a downturned triangle with a stick pipe coming out of it. Back here, you know, looks like a truncated trapezoidal figure. We can go on and on. But it was pretty fascinating at how low it was, and there's just moments where they let you see what's going on. Okay, and here's zooming in once more at that shape. Look, there are even like two sticks, so very hard edges. These look like two holes here and here. All right, now we get into, covered this on a previous show too, even one of the recap shows, of looking at lightning and quotes. And what I've noticed is a lot of clouds will just stand in one place. In a previous example I showed, it stayed there for an hour and a half. I mean, that's not typical at all. This is not a typical cloud shape for Miami area. This thing fanning out, it feels very artificial. The rim of it seems very frayed and very like chemical filled in some way. Not necessarily negative chemical filled, but just maybe camouflage filled. But anyway, it just like erupts out of nowhere. And then the lightning flashes, lightning in quotes I say, because it's not real lightning, are happening just internal to this cloud. Like growing up in this area, there'd be massive like cloud formation, but you'd have bolts coming out and every which way down toward the earth. This is all happening internal. So I really wanted to look at this, and I highly recommend that if you see some kind of storm like this and you know, you're sensing something isn't quite right, take some video footage with your camera phone or iPad, whatever you have, and just take some video footage. And as it's flashing, get enough of footage where you got flashes here and there going on and on. And then what you do is take that video footage, play it back, and go frame by frame by frame. And that's what I did here. So you can just see where exactly are the quote-unquote bolts coming from. In this case, none were coming from above or outside coming down to the earth. They were all internal to this very artificial looking cloud. So I got them at one point, you know, toward the center, one point off to the right. And then as it came back toward the front, lower left, right-hand corner, I noticed it seemed like objects were back in there getting backlit. So that's my proof that there's cloaking craft happening in these bigger, you know, cloud and assemblies, cloud and quotes. So I was looking further, and on the backlight, look at, there's a hole, like a an actual hole, like you could put a stick into it, a supersized stick. And so to me, that's showing there's some kind of structure in there. And here's another little angle of it, things going on. And then this is fuzzy because it's at a big distance and I don't have the best camera for nighttime shots. But anyway, just say now for some close-ups. So if you follow my little arrow here, this is that overall like fringy stuff at the top, the overall kind of cloud, standing cloud. And on one of the backlight situations, look, we got a skinny stick, we have a perfect triangle, another little stick popping out. This looks like a rectangular thing with two holes in it. I mean, this is symmetry all over the place. And, you know, like this has like a stick coming out of it as well. So these are objects, you know, cloaking. And then we got these like bridges, right? Like these rigid rectangular forms, sharp angles, you know, connecting to other things. So I think there's just some more massive ship cloaking in there. And then let me go back. And then maybe ships come in and out of this, you know, and dock up to a bigger, you know, craft. And then here's just another example, the upper left-hand corner. It's just like a bulb. It's not a lightning, you know, bolt or anything. It's just like a lamp. And it's even backlighting a pure triangle here. And in a couple, I think there are 3 in a row. Now, the upper right, this is on a backlight. Look at this. You know, this is something like bent. And this looks like, again, a perfect triangular craft with a circle in it. So lots of things, activity going on. The bottom view, this almost looks like a city, you know, where you have like a, you know, some kind of tower built out of masonry. It's just really crazy looking. This has like 2 holes. It's like 2 pipes. So just, again, the more you look at any of these pictures, the more you're going to find. All right, now we get to more strange clouds and quotes. This I just said rising salmon because there was just so much of this intense peach salmon color. Really beautiful though. But look how low this was in the sky. This happened to be, I think this was really early in the morning at sunrise. And I was the only one out, you know, on the street. And oh, I call it rising salmon because not only for the beautiful color, but this thing at C.2, when we come down to the lower right-hand corner, there it is, zoomed in and with enhancement, is C5. Looks like a little vertical swimming salmon to me. And here we have all these little black dots look like pipe ends. Anyway, I haven't seen anything like this actually much with my observations like that little C.2 figure. Anyhow, what happened was, again, extraordinary color coming off of this thing. It seemed like it was self-illuminating because there was nothing else in the sky turning anything else this color. And by light physics, it really couldn't do it anyway. So I think it had like some self-illumination mechanism going on. Other, you know, objects trying to, you know, come in and out of state of cloaking. And so I looked to the right, and there you see at a distance, you know, I was looking at this down a street. And I'm like, how is this? It's like lifting up out of nowhere, you know, because there, again, there's no man-made device or anything blowing smoke up local, like just a couple blocks away, right? And then with some extreme enhancement, you know, at B.1, you just see a pure triangle straight up near this little vertical thing. And here we go, it's zooming in on it. It may not be a perfect triangle, but we start to see a pipe end coming out of it. We see like these 2 prong things coming out of this thing. And again, what's this little vertical, what I'll call fish in quotes, what's that thing doing? I mean, what's the relationship of the 2 and why is it just hanging out there, right? Anyway, we look down here, what's also happening at this weird cloud. Look at strong diagonal line in the upper, you know, left-hand corner, that's cloud. Strong diagonal with little weird things popping out of it, right? So maybe this thing pops straight up out of there, I don't know. See what you think with the whole scene. There's even like a hook, like a stick and a hook. You know, like a, what do you call those little teacup hooks? I mean, there you go. So we've got technology in there, right? And this looks very rigid. You know, it's banking like a dog leg up out of there. And then we got this weird thing at the tip of this quote-unquote cloud. So yeah, we're talking total cloaking craft everywhere in technology. And then the lower right inset, I just turned this quote-unquote fish on its side to try to see it in a new way. And we just see these weird little, you know, dimples and pipe ends and things happening all over the place. Here we zoom in also. I blew out to get rid of some of that peach salmon color. You know, put extreme brightness on it to try to see if we see any other machine parts. We go to the right-hand side. Look, got like a, looks like the end of a tack. It's like a, you know, poke, very poke-like, maybe. And then we have these 4 dots. So that shows intelligent design. You know, it's 4 dots, and maybe this is a spike coming out of there. I don't know. We have, you know, another little point here, like a triangular point. We have something strange happening here, but in no case does that look like a natural cloud, and it looks like objects. Lower left-hand corner, again, with more extreme blowout with brightness. you know, we start to see here's where the actual craft is. So the smoke and mirrors is around it with all the color. And here we get to the crux of it, because this is like shadow line of the edge of this thing. And we have a clear object here of some type, and a clear object down here floating around that was hiding in there. We got sharp edges, you know, we got dimension to this thing, got more little stick-like things happening off of it. And then to the right, we're just looking at this little object, weird little object. And so there's a clear pipe, you know, it's some kind of machine part on this craft. Okay, now we're going back to Australia again. And in this case, again, friend of the channel, Yowie Grrowlz, noted this very peculiar lineup, literally, right? Very kind of equally spaced and just very odd. No natural clouds that Yowie Grrowlz had ever seen either. And pretty low, you know, if you look at the upper left-hand corner, pretty low in the sky, right off at the distance. So I zoomed in, also noted some oddities with the quote-unquote sun happening. We won't touch that on here. But actually what is interesting, though, is there is a straight line heading toward this quote-unquote sun. And when we go in the enlarged version down here and enhanced, it's still here. You know, there's a stick and a very symmetrical shape at the end of it coming right at the quote-unquote sun. So that's curious. I'll leave it at that for now. We go to the lower right and we blow up. We zoom in, you know, on some of these things. And so we start to see that with a couple of them, they have the, you know, parallel lines to each other. And on A, it looks like a little craft is parked on top of whatever's cloaking here. So we're going to go in on just that one to see that little thing and see that this is why I say it's like a little craft or object kind of docked on top of a bigger craft. Because you got this whole thing looks very much like a wing or like a tail fin wing type thing. We got a hole, and we got, you know, some rigid form and engineered form happening. We even have like a little hole here too. So, and this reminds me of some similar craft I've seen before. So anyway, we got cloaking craft happening there. Okay, this is just for fun. It's not the Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page, but it's one of the thank you pages, because at the end of the earlier shows too, I always end on a slide like this with kind of like the photo of the day or the week. This one was really funny. I thought was hysterical. So it's a little tip jar at a little cafe I saw in northern Florida, and it says, "Money is the root of all evil. Cleanse your soul here. Tips, thank you." So I thought that was pretty clever. Really funny, because, and I said, let's talk about currency and flow, giving and receiving for a moment. And the money itself, I'm sure you've heard elsewhere, is money in itself is not evil. It's just any other thing, like, you know, an apple is fine if I'm going to eat it or share it, and it's not so fine if I throw it as hard as I can at somebody, right? So money is just money, and it's what your intention is with it, you know, that makes or breaks it. So having money in and of itself, not evil. In fact, it's a wonderful thing, and then you have more to give and share with others. So just another little friendly reminder to look at our perspective, you know, keep ourselves in check on it. And I just said in that show, thank you for spending a little time here a while, right? So I have to put in my little puns too at the end of the shows. All right, now we're going to look at, this one was called Sky Time, Oceans of Objects. The show, as you can see, from August 27th, 2021. This is a roof line to the lower left, and this was very low in the sky. You can see the trees. And this is, of course, the enhanced version. But here you see a straight line and kind of a curve, and, you know, it's definitely some type of object. So that was pretty fascinating. And the color signature, too, I wasn't expecting, because this was looking to an area where there should not be this color in that area of the sky at any time. And then we have that bright glow. So this, again, I think is one of those ET races that come in with an extraordinary form of technology of how they bring in their craft and cloak, because we have this otherworldly cyan glow and otherworldly beautiful, like, you know, salmon and peach colors. It just feels very happy and, you know, rose colored. All right, upper left corner is an original. These just seemed like two, it felt artificial because they were doing the same thing parallel in tandem and spaced apart, and normal, you know, again, cumulus clouds don't look like this in this area, and they were very, very low. So enhancement, we see to the right, to me, those are two separate cloaking entities, which may have multiple cloaking craft within them. But see what you think is going on there. I also see in the background this thing, which splits into a perfect, you know, diagonals here and here. So I know we're dealing with machine parts. That's how I know those are cloaking craft. And over here, it seems at the tip there also seems to be a perfect circle. Those are just little tells and giveaways that we're dealing with more than natural clouds. Lower left-hand corner is the original. The right's enhanced. Again, we've got this like skinny noodle-like thing, but it's comprised, I think, of multiple different types of cloaking craft, or one longer craft with many little craft docked to it in different ways. Look at this. We've got this fuzz out is another great way to cloak. You know, you make the whole atmosphere choppy and bitmappy, which I call staccato cloud effect. Very choppy, disruptive. But we got, you know, two solid objects happening in there too. More stuff's happening beyond, but we'll keep going. Lower right-hand corner, on the left-hand side is the original. The right hand is with enhancement. Look at this. It's like a tuning fork. You know, it's like it couldn't be more of a perfect tuning fork type shape. And that's attaching into something bigger here. So it's kind of like a whale, like in the mist. We see the dark solid object part, and we know more is happening below it. So this is like this. What's this like arm doing popping up out of here? Maybe it's trying to catch this other craft. I don't know. But we have another pointed craft here, you know, and other strange stuff happening in here. Okay, upper left is the original, upper right is enhanced, and wow, we see holes with stuff, you know, shooting out of it. This looks like, look at it, it's perfectly symmetrical, like a little, like we're looking at an old plane from below, and, you know, it just looks happy flying through the air, right? This overall scene was pretty wild. I mean, there were craft everywhere, and this was at a sunrise. Again, I was the only one out on the street, and I do believe that, you know, if we have the affinity and we are tapped, so to speak, activated to look up for these things, sometimes we get a little playful show. It felt very playful, the whole thing. I mean, at first, look at the left-hand side, upper left. This is what I saw, and I'm like, how do we have three distinct shapes, you know, like this, with straight edges and symmetrical? That's not clouds. And then, bam, we're treated to extra stuff when we do some enhancements. And we got holes here and here, you know, lots of stuff going on. Lower right-hand corner. This is looking off at the distance. At the bottom is the original. The top is with enhancement. Just look how we have one thing coming up straight that's symmetrical, and then things radiating off in different directions. That's not normal cloud activity. And again, the more you look, you'll see there's cloak and craft happening in these things. Lower left is just another wisdom, words, wisdom, and spirit of the day page. This time it's involving rose quartz and pink opal, and then green opal. And I used, you know, some of the oracle cards, and we have Luminous Warrior with number 32 or number 5. Again, I welcome you to go to that show and see the full page. You'll be able to read it better. Okay, this one is coming from Behold the Sky and Animals. I titled it that because this overall cloak and craft assembly in the upper right-hand corner here looked like an alligator, you know, poking its nose up out of the swampy water. So, and also later in the show, I show you animals from Lion Country Safari. It's a animal theme park out in West Palm Beach. It's been there forever, and they do have lions, and they have other safari animals kind of walking around in the open. I mean, there's bigger fenced areas, but you drive through. It's a model that was done in the 60s, so instead of going to a zoo and looking at the animals in cages, you're the one kind of in the cage in the car driving through and looking at the animals. That's the concept. They do have the lions, though, behind fencing and yeah, like barriers like that, just because people, I think, were opening windows and getting injured because you're told to keep your windows shut, and they weren't. Anyway, I digress. Let's move along. So, upper left-hand corner, you know, you can see the top of a telephone pole, tops of trees. This gives you the idea of the scale of this thing. So again, we have this heavy cloud blanket that I talked about earlier that's not letting you see. I think in this case it was I think this was the sun. I can't see it. I think this was nope, I think it was sunset. But anyway, deep cloud comes across so you can't even see the sunset or sunrise, doesn't matter. But then I saw a point here, so this was looking very much like a triangle. And as you see with enhancement, we do see weird activity happening in here. Weird little reflectant things and machine part pipe there, you know. And then strange stuff happening above as well. But then we go down to the lower left. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go straight down beneath Behold the Sky and Animals. Just again, with a little more enhancement, you just see weird stuff. It's almost like these things are flying across, you know, the foreground of this thing. And again, you know, we see the point in the pipe. We know there are machine parts hiding in there. In the background, too, it's more murky, but you can see that there's other objects, you know, being cloaked, you know, beyond. Then the lower left-hand corner, the bottom part is original, top is enhanced, and kind of like our Australian photo sent in example. And again, thank you to Yowie Grrowlz. Anytime I pull those up, thank you so much for submitting the photos and just being such a great friend to the channel. But anyway, below, I also kind of have this marching pattern of stuff. Not as clear as an example as the Australian Yowie Grrowlz example, but still odd enough to take notice. And this is very low in the sky. I mean, the roof line is like right here. Anyway, we got a stick, we got a triangle. You know, look at any one of these things, you're going to see different, you know, craft or objects cloaking there. Okay, upper left-hand corner. This is looking to the west, and it's a little bit of a warped panorama, but not too bad. True west is over here, and we move toward the south over here. But look at this. The upper, you know, enhancement one, this is just like a ball of different color, but it has a very sharp termination, like in an arc, and then it frays off into weird stuff over here. So I just found that very odd. Guaranteed to be cloak and craft in here. Then we look to the right, and we have, again, original on the left, and enhanced on the right. Look at 8.1, it's a curve, like held by like a stick. And then we have another object, kind of looks like it's docking into whatever this round thing is, right? And we have other little sticks and pipe ends and things popping out. It was just really bizarre. And again, when you looked at the original, I saw this straight line, and then it banks up like this on angle. And then you see the tips of all these little triangles everywhere. So you know, again, this is just like one huge, massive craft showing up with other little docking craft to it. Then we look to the lower left, and this seemed weird. Once again, no natural clouds usually form this erratic and that shape. So with enhancement, we got, again, that otherworldly glow, that otherworldly cyan white stuff happening. You know, look at this angle and this angle. They're kind of similar. And then things are kind of breaking off and shooting off of this thing. And then I don't know what's happening in the front here, but you see these bright white, like almost crystalline type points of light, and you know, those are like either ends of machine parts or something else is happening there. So again, I'll leave this to you to look more in your own time and detail that. Okay, here, this is from the cover slide from a show called Why, Sky, Why? I was just like, what is going on here? What are you doing? And so it's more just like a joke. I know it's Cloak and Craft creating this erratic staccato effect, staccato cloud effect, I call it again. So many different patternings, so many different color signatures, all in one place. Even we start to see like this perfect like pointed almond shape, you know. So again, and like, look at this is a symmetrical object on angle. We got something looks like it's docking below here. You know, we're dealing with one like bigger craft with a ton of craft around it. All right, here's another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page. I think I will go ahead and read this one. And I'll just read the main part, and I invite you to go, you know, read this a little more on your own time. But it's number 8, the circle card coming from the Mystical Shaman Oracle deck. And then on top of it, I pulled out my own quote. Actually, I invite any of you, if you have a loved one who has passed, I felt moved to read this actually at a funeral service. It just meant a lot to me and seemed to fit the situation. But I think it's a beautiful little passage. It's attributed to Black Elk. I found it on ya-native.com website. Okay, so just a circle of life. I'm going to read this. Everything the power of the world does is done in a circle. The sky is round, and I have heard that the earth is round like a ball, and so are all the stars. The wind in its greatest power whirls. Birds make their nests in circles, for theirs is the same religion as ours. The sun comes forth and goes down again in a circle. The moon does the same, and both are round. Even the seasons form a great circle in their changing and always come back where they were. The life of a man is a circle, from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. Okay, we'll move on. All right, now, this is a smattering of things. I'm not really going to narrate each thing just for time's sake, but I'll invite you to look at the upper left. You know, got the side-by-side comparison of what's going on. The upper right, you know, more of the same. Lower left, we start to see like a cylindrical thing emerge from like a weird choppy staccato effect ball with some weird light going on behind it. Very fascinating. We go to the right and we see it with a little more in different color saturation, you know, to see if we can make out what this stick-like thing is. Then we go to an enlargement of it, that stick-like thing, and look at, we got like a different color highlighting the top of it, and just all kinds of stuff going on in this scene. Again, this looks like a perfect ball, like really choppy looking in here too. See what you think is going on in there. All right, I'm going to move along too a little bit quicker. But upper left, you know, I see these things off in the distance, and I just felt that I'm like, oh, those are craft traveling in tandem across the sky. Very low, very obvious. And here with enhancement, you can see it. It's almost like a little mini submarine. Look at that. I mean, it's so clear. for being cloaked. It's really pretty clear. And then some disc-like things happening up here too, with these big openings, regular holes happening around it. So see how choppy this is? It's again another way to very cleverly cloak stuff. And even here, there start to be like two intersecting like sticks, and I can tell there's some intelligent design and engineering happening up there. All right, lower left-hand corner. This was the title of a show, Luminous Sky. And here, it's like the top of a boat, like a little rowboat. And with this is forming a triangle, weird stuff happening in the back with two holes and symmetrical with these lines happening. So it's a bigger scale, something happening beyond. Actually, this is just one side of what looks like a huge, semicircle. So I think the scale of whatever's going on beyond is absolutely enormous. And this is just in the front, this thing. And there's like another little stick with, symmetry happening here too. So again, keep looking. The more you look, the more you're going to see. This obviously is something cloaking too, also in the foreground. To the right, we just see also just the color felt very different, and the particulate was really dense. And we look to the right, and the more you look in here, you're going to see symmetrical objects and things happening all over the place. And look at, like, if here in the lower right-hand corner is like a normal sky reference, look at this explosion of all different colors. So again, I think just something rolled up, showed up, if you will. Huge, huge, huge craft. And I'll just say it, huge-ass craft, cloaking in really wild ways. And I bet there's a lot of different individual, cloaking craft happening all within it. Okay, upper left-hand corner, I'm just going to hit to the highlights of the highlights to move along. But 8.1, this looked like a fishing hook just stuck to the side of this thing. So we go up in the inset, that's a pure hook shape. Like it looks like a metal hook, fish hook. So something's happening in this whole thing. Then we go to the upper right, another weird example. This thing just started emerging and had a funny haze around it. Again, a really weird glow. And we go to the right, and now we see why. It's like a pure white light with this cyan glow. And again, whenever I see this kind of glow and color signatures, I know it's a very special group of ETs showing up because it just presents in a way like no other of the cloaking craft do. And again, we kind of have this like milky feel to it, like this kind of ephemeral, weird, ethereal, kind of light and particulate together. Lower left-hand corner comes from the show Sky is Blue, Sun is Yellow, question mark. And look at this thing popping out of a very dense, cloud, I'll just call it in quotes. And then you start to see rigid lines. It's definitely we're seeing a part of a craft for sure, a bigger craft. Lower right-hand corner, I just noticed it felt like there was patterning going on in here. And with enhancement, we really see it. Look how white this thing is. I think that's a sphere of plasma cloaking material, cloaking an object in and of itself. And then we look beyond, and this again looks like some supersized scale of something cloaking, because we have like regularized little things here and here. Look, this looks like the end of shingles on a roof. They're machine parts. Okay, I'm going to move through these things pretty quickly because I have some more words, wisdom, and spirit of the day. And this phase of watching clouds, I was reading The Hobbit and the 3 books. And so I have some Lord of the Rings references in here for anybody who is interested in that. Just some theories and the ways of interpreting the book are coming up as well. On this slide, I do just want to say something, because this was at the height of the time that people were, let's just say, a lot of us duped with what was going on with the whole, what I will say is scam plus demic. I have lost loved ones to what was injected into their bodies. That's where I'll leave it. I know a lot of people have different opinions on what happened over the 4 years, but I will say no, I'm not happy at all with what happened. It was horrific. But what I will say is a part of that whole thing, I did not enjoy at all the propaganda of saying, quote unquote, stay safe. So at that time, I did put this together, and I'm going to read it. I just put live present. Present is present. We are here to clear away fear. There are no safe paths in this part of the world. Remember, you are over the edge of the wild now, and in for all sorts of fun wherever you go. That's a quote from Gandalf in The Hobbit. So I want to just say, kindly consider this. No more saying stay safe. I know it's not as, in fashion, we'll just say, kind of sarcastically, now anymore. But I was so tired of hearing that. I want to say, Now is the perfect time to ditch that old new habit, like an old new hobbit forgetting the armchair and finding and freeing himself through adventure. And practice new greetings and sign-offs like live present, shine on, live glorious, happy adventures, be luminous, happiness to you. You get the idea. And I know you can come up with even better ones. So I have a question of the day at the end of this one. Are you wishing others empowerment and expansiveness, strength? Or are you wishing them victimhood and restriction or a weakened state of being? Do your words match your good intentions? So I just want to, put the period on this sentence by saying, you don't need to wish someone safe if you know we are already loved, blessed, and protected inherently, and that there is no getting anything wrong. To quote-unquote stay safe, I know there's maybe a good-hearted intent back there, but the words don't really match up. If you're wishing somebody well, you wish them expansiveness, adventuresomeness, if that's a word. But all the while knowing that, of course, they're going to be protected. And wishing them exploring new things, not staying stagnant or like trapped in a corner or chained to a desk, because you might think that's safe, staying, in your house and chained to the corner. But what if a tornado lifts up the whole thing, right? So just stay free, wild and free is what I say. Knowing you're protected. All right, now I'm not going to go over these. These are just some of my theories on who or what Tom Bombadil is from the Lord of the Rings lore. And then also I had a response on a certain channel about, who or what is Tom Bombadil, so you might find that interesting. Okay, then, sorry, hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Again, this is just if more if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, this will make more sense to you. And just some interesting points that I brought up, but I'm not going to cover them in this show. I do invite you to read them on your own time if you're interested. Okay, now here, upper left-hand corner, the lower one's the original, upper one's enhanced. Look at this thing at A. It's just like floating down to what looks like a massive, bigger ship. Because you can see a point here, you can see other weird little symmetrical things popping up. Upper right-hand corner, you can just see we've got a pure like dark raspberry color in front of a really bright white thing, and these are in the same proximity. And then you have something peach. That's why I say some of this stuff is self-illuminating, because you would not have all of these three colors. I mean, these things are right next to each other. And then coming down over here, we have a straight line and stuff. It looks like this thing is like floating down in to maybe dock with whatever this is. Lower left-hand corner, just, again, you can just kind of see some strange things emerging, very heavy, cloudy, or, heavily particulated sky. And I just started to see, like, these strips and things with different movement to them. So with enhancement, that's why I was kind of detecting and picking up on it. Because we do have, like a curved stick here, some curved thing here. And again, you start to see this otherworldly glow and lighting going on. This is a lot of different color signatures that, shouldn't be appearing in one little section of the sky. And then we see the edge of this down in the lower right-hand corner. We're seeing that, oh, wow, there's an even more massive object down here with none of this other color signature. So it's like this thing is lifting up and emerging out of some bigger thing. All right, now we're going to hop back to Australia again. This one's interesting. So once again, thank you to Yowie Grrowlz, who captured this at A. Just seemed very odd, had some little ripple work in it, didn't seem like a normal cloud, and was pretty much standalone. So with enhancement, we start to see more of a perfect line, edge, on this thing. I'm going to liken this to, well, I guess we'll go down the lower left, you'll see it better. Kind of like a very sophisticated, chic, elongated power speedboat, where this would be the bow at the front, and then that would be the back, and then this would be like the little, I don't know if it's called a cockpit or whatever on these fancy racing boats, but that seems like that would be where you view, and operate this thing. And so again, just different views of it through the sky. We're going to zoom in a little bit. The color signatures were strange once again. So we go from like warm tones with little objects floating in it to blue blues and other things happening above. But this thing is very curious. I'm going to invite you to come look down here at A8.3. Here we even see some depth to what I'm calling the bow, the bow of this ship, because it does have a split in it with a perfect parallel line to it. And again, no cloud could do that. It even seems to kind of like hook around and attach here. So we're seeing the side and depth of this is a ship, You know, I don't know what these little things are. I don't even know if these are top of the heads of people in the little, you know, captain's section of this thing. But I do know that this isn't Natural Cloud doing, you know, the Natural Cloud doesn't do that. It's got to be a Cloaking craft. Okay, upper left-hand corner, just some other things happening in the sky here were noticed. And so I, you know, zoom in, and where that A part is, look at, it's much whiter than any of these other color signatures. So that's a standalone object, and it's symmetrical. So I'm calling that a Cloaking craft. And then A3, you know, we're just looking at it with different kinds of enhancement. We kind of see it, not as well as up here with that level of enhancement. But look down here. We start to see that in this glow, you know, above the trees, what just looks like the sun, look at, out of it is popping a Cloaking craft with a hard edge again, with shadow under it, you know, pretty wild. All right, now this is looking west in Miami, and, you know, more strange cloud activity, we'll call it. So the bottom, you know, it's the original, I just saw some weird, you know, curvature happening here, and these don't look like natural clouds anyway. And again, they kind of seem to be traveling in tandem and with straight edges at the bottoms, more or less. So looking up here, we just see weird little things. You know, that's not a natural cloud shape. There's a triangular shape over here. This thing, you know, splits, so that to me is like a tail of a craft diving down that's docked onto a bigger ship. What's this coming in? This is like some fuzzy nebulous shape, but look at these like weird things, you know. They're like kind of attaching. Like, I don't know, is that a weird way of like tow cables, or it's, you know, holding this like a balloon onto this craft? I don't know, see what you think. All right, here's zooming in on that thing where I have the question marks. What's this thing doing? And then we see, again, weird movement. That's not a natural cloud. And I still don't know what this thing is doing, but it is somehow connecting to this other craft, doing something. And this is a craft. I mean, look, we have straight lines and weird textures happening, you know, showing like different kind of metal or different kind of color. There's a circle over here. Just weird stuff. All right, we're taking, I guess, one more view at it. Again, what's going on here? You know, very strange activity. I'll leave this to you to look more in your own time, but look at this. This is almost like a grappling hook or something flying out of the front of this thing. Is it shooting a grappling hook to here to hold on? I don't know. See what you think. All right, we're going to move a little quicker too again. Left-hand side, just notice this dark shadow, and nothing can be creating a shadow the way this is supposed to be the sun, although it felt like artificial sun. What is this hitting to create a shadow banking off this way? It's not the cloud itself. And so with enhancement, I can prove it. You know, this is a different kind of solid object. Same effect over here to the right is, you know, the original, and then we're going to go over to the enhanced. The shadow now turns from being on an angle to being level. Okay, so it's not a shadow, it's an object. And then we look at the end of this thing, zooming in even more, and we see it's an object with a rimmed opening, or it's an elliptical marking or something happening right here. It's like the end of a pipe. And we have a straight line, and so we know it's a craft. Okay, here, upper left, is two solitary quote-unquote clouds I saw, and nothing else around them, and they look very suspect as being Cloaking craft. With enhancement, we see it even better. You know, those are kind of symmetrical shapes with sharp lines. Yeah, those are two crafts side by side. Lower left-hand corner, the show called Cloud Confetti. This thing is rising up, has some symmetry, has some, you know, straight lines to it. You know, how would any cloud do this kind of chaos and have some straight lines popping out of it? You know, we're talking Cloaking craft. Lower right, again, this was not a real sun effect. It looked like very artificial. Anyway, when you look to the right, how do we have two light sources? Do see some of my earlier shows, maybe some of my later shows, to look at theories on that and other sky and earth watching channels about a second sun or artificial sun solar simulator tech. I cover that as well in other shows. But anyway, lower left-hand corner, this is clearly some kind of object floating right across, so with enhancement we start to see that, you know. And again, weird stuff popping up out of that quote-unquote cloud. You know, there starts to be rigid geometry even happening here, something bigger, you know, where it gets more fuzzed out. And the elephant in the room, too, is look at this big dark sphere that's like a big ball. What's going on in there? What's cloaking in there? Actually, this over here, too, could be some kind of craft cloaking moving off that way. Lots going on in here. Look how straight this line is. All right, here's another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page. It's just covering the card called the Smoky Mirror from the Mystical Shaman Oracle, the card deck. And let's see, I'll just read part of it. The crystals that came up were chrysocolla and the number 47. I invite you to read that more later. And let me just see what I want to read. I'll just read the center part. the smoky mirror, it says the invitation. When the symbol of the smoky mirror appears, you're invited to see beyond your own self. Acknowledge that, past the limits of your current ability to perceive, there is a vast interconnected world, where events are orchestrated in divine order but challenging to fully grasp. Now is the time to trust that no matter what the current conditions of your of your world reflect, in the hidden realms, all aspects of the human journey are celebrated. The beauty and the darkness, the misery and the courage. No matter where you are on your journey, know that some things are meant to be a mystery, which you are meant to understand only through experience. Take heart, for the smoky mirror will ultimately show you beauty and wonder once the fog lifts the distortion you see now. I just think it's very powerful. There are other great messages in here as well. But very fitting when we're talking about seeing through the fog and the fog lifting. Much like with these craft, we start to see more and more. And we're going to start to be able to tie into the wonder of the much bigger world around us and galaxies, right? Once more and more of this stuff is revealed. Okay, upper left-hand corner, I noticed this seemed to have structure to it. That's what I just felt in my heart. When I was looking at this, I'm like, wow, whatever this is, it has structure. It has a logic and an organized engineering to it. So we look to the right hand, and sure enough, right-hand corner, these look like, illuminations, and they're very regularized, marching along. This is a massive craft of some type. Lower left-hand corner, looking by the tree, that was to the naked eye. Doesn't that look strange? That's no ordinary cloud configurations. And look how low. Again, this is a roof line over here. So with enhancement, we get that weird, special glow. And again, it had a good vibe, not a negative vibe. And we have all these little things happening that just show you, yeah, we're dealing with parts and pieces and different type of craft. They're all little triangles. Okay, lower right is double rainbow. I never saw those when I was a kid. And anyway, we have the one kind of hitting down at this rainbow, ironically, rainbow eucalyptus, eucalyptus tree, sorry, rainbow eucalyptus tree, and it was like coming right down in it, so the irony is not lost on me there. And so anyway, that's just illustrating the doubled rainbow effect, and then back here too, there seemed to be symmetrical cloaking craft with a rounded bottom, like flying in from somewhere, right? Okay, this was pretty wild, just looking on the upper left-hand corner. That's to the naked eye. That's no natural cloud activity. So with enhancement, you see why. Look at this. What's going on? Is that a solid object in front, or is that a hole with a rim? Whatever this is, I think we're seeing the end, like the end edge of something cloaking. Look at this movement, like something's coming down into it. What do you think's happening? I mean, D.1, we got two parallel lines, squarely perpendicular into another one. That's engineered parts, friends. Something else is happening over here. Lower left-hand corner, to the naked eye, this is pretty low over roof lines in a suburban Miami. What the heck is this? Straight line parallel off in the distance. Right away, I kind of see a triangular form or some kind of form in here with a stick. So with enhancement, that all becomes a little more clear. This is definitely not natural clouds happening. All right, kind of similar concept of what we just saw. So I'm not going to go through each individual slide here, or cluster of images on this one slide. Do, root around here on your own if you're interested in, what's going on here. But it's just illustrating, I will in the upper right, look at, these seem to be parallel, whatever these objects are, blasting along in this direction with the trajectories happening behind them. This thing seems to be heading this way to the right. I don't know what this is doing above, but look at, they're all in the same vicinity. How do we have black objects with white, right? There's different ways that they're cloaking. And lower left is the original, lower right is with enhancement. Again, this is part of something bigger. Do look at that on your own time. Okay, this got interesting too. Let's see. This is just kind of like the bigger picture showing the overall scene. It has enhancement on it, but we have a straight line. We have these things at all different angles with something brighter happening in the middle. When we look to the upper right, this is kind of the original. Again, this is happening above a tree, pretty low, and I'm looking east. And I just saw, what is going on? We got movement this way, to a point. We have movement up and over, just natural clouds, no way. Do that, so we go to the right hand, and with enhancement, we start to see the whole thing. And again, this had a very playful spirit to it. I wasn't afraid at all. I knew we're dealing with craft, but it just was really intriguing. I'm like, what are they showing me now, right? Lower right-hand corner is the cover slide of that show called Sky Tumbling. That's where you'll find more of these scenes and where I, break it down in detail. Now, I want to mention that wherever I have talked about these in previous shows, that was just for my level of understanding at that time. I have been shown so much more since then. So if I go through the whole show again, I might interpret it or call out things totally differently. And that's the fun and beauty and magic of all of this too. I might point something and be like, oh my gosh, she missed that huge thing. How did she not see that? Well, with these things, you'll take on a very different read on what you're seeing when you look at this on a thumbnail size or on a small device versus blowing it up on a big screen on a laptop or something. It does really, it does make a difference of what you see. So actually, in my earlier shows, I always recommended that people, if you could, and you have the devices, look at it on a bigger laptop and also have like a little smaller phone handheld device below it, and simultaneously toggle your vision up and down at the two screens, because you see very different things at a small scale versus at a larger scale. Okay, all right, now I'm going to move along. This is another one of those cases. If you even squint your eyes at the bigger, object, if you're looking on a laptop screen on a bigger scale, you start to see different things too. Okay, but what's interesting here is it's almost like a perfect ball, like an orb, massive sized orb, that has its own light, and that everything else is kind of flying in and around that. Very fascinating. All right, this one is Sky Candy 2. I was at a gas station when I took this picture. I remember it clearly. But anyway, we have weird stuff. Oh, you know what? I take that back. Sky Candy 1, I was at the gas station. Okay, this one is separate. Sorry. Scratch that. This is looking at the western horizon in a suburban neighborhood in Miami. Anyway, fascinating. Look at the color range. Again, it had a euphoric glow, very slightly detectable to the human eye. This is popping out with the enhancement. What I found fascinating too is this shape over at 8.1. It was more clear in some of my photos, and it got fuzzy again in some of the others. But there's some type of object happening over here in addition to this being an overall object, I'm going to say here. I did post this recently on my community page, so I'm not going to go over it in detail, but it's just featuring the crystal rhodonite and going over some ways to work with it where it can be helpful in a healing capacity. So I do recommend you look at this on your own time. All right, upper left-hand corner, very different quote-unquote cloud formation compared to all of this. It's all in the same vicinity, so of course that got my notice. Upper right-hand corner, you start to see more. And again, I'll defer to all of you to look at this more in your own time, but be watching for patterns, movement, plasma levels, color signatures, where things are illuminating, excuse me. Especially when they're just within a cloud, and that illumination is a different tone than everything else around it. Very interesting. Lower left-hand corner, original on the left, enhanced on the right. It looks like something's docking onto something much bigger that's being completely well hidden by a very fine, heavy, thick particulate. Lower right-hand corner looks like B is coming out of this overall thing. We look to the right with enhancement, you see it. That even looks like another little scouting object, or like a instrument. Maybe it's an instrument or object that takes, atmospheric readings. I don't know, or just flanks that as protection. But we have, something that's very triangular-like in here as well. Sharp edge of cloud doesn't do that. Just so many tells that we're dealing with Cloaking Craft once again. All right, in this scene, upper left-hand corner, what caught my attention were these little weird, a stick and like a wishbone from a turkey kind of shape, and this thing looks like it's flying off in this direction. And then I started to look up too, and on the bigger scale, just something, pure line happening in here. So with enhancement, we start to see this object. I worked the enhancement in a way to see what was up here first, and then we work in another way to see what's going on down here. It just has to do with the function of it's a light background with dark objects, a dark background with light objects. When you do the enhancements, you have to treat them a little differently to pull things out differently given their background. So here, this is some kind of object. I can't quite get to what it is, but I know it's engineered intelligence up there. Down here, with the different enhancement we see, these are objects. There's like a brighter white spot happening in here. Can't quite tell too much more than that, but this could be separate objects, or we're just seeing something poke up out of like a bigger, craft, and they're all part of the same thing. I don't know which. To the right, this was interesting. Where I have A and B. I thought it was two different things happening, but with enhancement, this might be the outline of a bigger craft. But again, I'll defer to you guys to look that up, look around at this at your own time, zoom in and kind of check it out, see what you see. All right. Weird, weird, weird on this, the two upper photos. So no way can you have a straight line horizontal and have this coming down an angle and this springing back out again and have a natural cloud assembly. Just doesn't happen that way. So here with enhancement, excuse me, we see why. You know, there's a stick-like element kind of hidden by other kind of clouds, in quotes. You know, we have very sharp edges and angles. Again, this is one I'll just defer to you to have a look around. Same principle with what's going on in the lower, you know, scene. What's interesting here, though, is this kind of caught my attention, of course, also the background. But we go to the lower right-hand corner and look it up at A1. This looks like the end of a, I don't know, like a straw or something weird. You know that's like an object. Look at the perfect lines and curves on that thing. And then what's this doing? I don't know. But see what you see in that scene. All right, here's that gorgeous glow. And then, you know, this was where we saw something a little more structured. Can't quite get to it, but it looks like something circular here, here, and here at regular intervals. So there's some type of intelligent design involved. Okay, here's looking back at a distance as the sun was quote-unquote going further down. So some of the warm glow was taken out of it, but it still was very pink. This is to the naked eye. Very, very pink and beautiful. And again, no bad feelings with it. It felt euphoric. And then here we start to see there's something there. You know, it's coming in and out of state. And then look, it's like bright where the bright burnout points are. Just really wild stuff. Really incredible. It felt very interesting, fascinating, and not scary at all. All right, now we're looking at the lower version here, is the original. And again, we're kind of seeing like the waning embers of the glow of whatever was going on in the sky. The colors starting to retreat out of the sky. But we look at the upper portion, but there's still color in there. And there's still this huge glow with this thing coming off to the side. This is the thing that we were looking at before, that beautiful glow ball. And now it looks like parallel fingers are touching something else. So we look at this, stick and stick. So something massive was hiding in there with this glow. And I want to say too that all of this, where we have this line, this has got to be all above some massive cloaking object. And then look down here, we have these straight lines. I didn't do the enhancement to pick those up because I was really fascinated with this over here. But if I did, you know, I'm sure we'd see more of objects hiding in there. All right, this was just crazy. Excuse me for one moment. Okay. Upper left-hand corner, just started to see weird disturbances. It just seemed to erupt and, you know, show up in the moment that I looked up. So I was noticing that as well. We had this weird curve, like hooking back into some kind of object. So to the right, we still see it, like something's like wrapping around. And I don't know what's going on with this thing, but maybe you have some ideas. I was just truly fascinated with all the different color signatures. This is looking to the south. This shouldn't be like this, looking south of where I was. And we have all these different colors and little weird objects, and it was super, super staccato cloud effect, fuzzy to the human eye. Again, a very effective way to cloak whatever it was. Lower left-hand corner, just again, symmetrical shape. These two like sticks are parallel. This is a pure triangular form, a pure stick off this thing. Have a look in there, see what you see. Down here too, weird shape, you know, symmetrical. And then going in with more enhancement, you know, we just see, again, different color, you know, signatures kind of wrapped around some kind of dark object. All right, upper left, I think you see it. I'm pretty sure you did. You saw the triangle, I hope. And to the right, there it is with enhancement. Again, weird kind of self-illumination, I'm going to call it, with little bright crystalline points. Again, those could be tips of machine parts poking out and the like sunlight's just catching it, or those could be self-illuminated. Lower left-hand corner, look at this thing, like a ball with beautiful color. This is another example of that otherworldly cyan, white, blue, hard to describe. All I can say, it's otherworldly, and it often comes with peach color or this beautiful pink raspberry. Just had a euphoric feel. And here you even see like a tip, you know, echoing tips of triangular forms, so we know there's intelligent design there. Lower right-hand corner, just felt a little bit of that peach or warm glow, and this is what came out. So that's definitely a symmetrical shape with a triangle below it and a white ball, and it looks like some other spherical ball beyond it. Okay, upper left-hand corner. How do we have really low in altitude, grayish clouds with straight lines below, and then we have one on angle, other stuff happening on angle above. So the upper right-hand corner shows a little bit better what's going on. I suspect each of these are craft in their own right. Something bigger happening probably up here. Lower left-hand corner is more of this object. I just zoomed in a little bit more to get at what that was. It was a fascinating little assembly. Lower right-hand corner, I just traced over where I was seeing some of these shapes. So to the right, you see it, here's a line, cut out, notch out line. So that's what I was seeing. And here, a bigger triangular shape below. There's more stuff on, and there's a triangular shape over here as well. Again, have at it and look around at all the little objects hiding in there. Okay, let's see, I already covered these above and down below. The lower left is the original, lower right is enhanced, and look at this little strange string of stuff happening. It's like nesting these little dart-shaped things as they move along. Really weird way of cloaking. Things are really fuzzy, phased out, fuzzed out. This has it's like a T. So we've got a stick with a perpendicular to it, so we know that's a machine part or a bigger craft. There's a triangular shape or a stick-like shape off of it. Just weird things. Angles like this don't happen with the natural clouds. I think all of us know that. And then the color signatures. Why is this like black and it's diving into something that's reddish? Again, these are all in very close proximity to each other. All right, upper left, just something seemed off here above the tree line. And we look at the right and look at this. We got little triangular forms. This is either one overall, craft, or maybe another Klingon craft to it. This looks like the end of a shovel, like a spade-like shape, not spade, shovel shape head here, maybe with shadow to it. So I don't know if it's a couple objects all racked up together to form overall one shape, or it's just one with different layers to it. And it looks like it swung in around from somewhere out here, and that's its vapor trail. All right, lower left-hand corner to the right lower corner. Again, this is from the cover. So that's what I saw to the left. But I see this glow coming up from behind the clouds, and that tips me off. It's this otherworldly glow starts to show up out of nowhere, and the warm tones together, and I know that's a very special, again, ET race showing up. So here's just, looking at it without the cover slide writing on there. And over here at B.1, it looks like a little object sitting there too. Okay, upper left to upper right, and again we just kind of see what I've told you before to look out for, especially triangular shapes, looking at color signatures and other things. Lower left hand corner, I mentioned this I think at the end of the last part, part 2, is I started to notice rainbows that aren't true real rainbows like we knew of the past. It seemed like craft were even generating them, and this is a good example. So the lower left is the original, and the right is with enhancement. Now it looks like there's an object cloaking here to the right and a triangular one up here to the left, and that's precisely where this rainbow begins and ends. So it's funny, I'm just thinking of it now. There's a new interpretation, right, for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Maybe it's a freaking cloaking craft with a golden glow, and that is the end of the rainbow, right? Anyway, I found this very interesting because I think it is evidence that we have a rainbow created between a cloaking craft and either another cloaking craft or portal or something. Okay, very fascinating. Also look at the color signatures. Why is this like a golden glow with a darker backlit object happening here? So we're dealing with cloaking craft with different types of self-illumination. All right, lower right again. Just looking at this overall scene that's the same from above, just turned vertical. Kind of really looking at that B.2 element, which is B.3 over here, just to see if I could see anything else. And whereas up here, we see this solid craft and we see this like light body craft going up this way with these like 3 parallel sticks dangling. Anyway, I blew out the color what did I do? I exaggerated the color saturation just to see where the color signatures were in this thing. And so to me, it shows like 2 predominant craft and another little craft all over the place. Oh, I'm going to go back one. See down here, the C.3, there's like a little finger. This looks like a hand with fingers, so we're going to zoom in on that too. So that's here, down here, that C element, upper right hand corner. Excuse me. Upper right hand corner, we start to see, what is this thing? Looks like a thing with fingers and some other craft happening down here, other craft happening all over the place. And here at the lower right, again, we can see this as a standalone object by its purple signature, color signature, with a different craft happening down here, or multiple craft, and even one back here, pretty pointy. All right, lower left-hand corner, another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page called Starfruit, carambolas. So in Spanish, the word for starfruit is carambola. And here I just talk about it a little bit, so I'm going to leave that to you to look at your own time if that interests you. And then again, you know, more of the same. We go to the enhancement up to the upper right and the original on the left, and we just start to see objects popping out, things that are rigid, little pipe ends, different color signatures. The lower left and the lower right also come from a show called Sky Mazing, talking about the mazes and cymatics and why do we have a maze in the middle of a cathedral, an old, you know, cathedral. So I have some theories and things on quote-unquote history and what might be told, what might be just a story, meaning not the truth. Anyway, I invite you to look into that on your own time if you're interested, and I recommend you go back to the source show so you can see this on a full page and clear. Alright, this is more of the same. So upper left-hand corner, panorama to the original eye, you know, naked eye, and up above is with enhancement. And again, we see strange objects moving off in all different directions from each other. Triangular shape, stick, you know, little stick popping off of this thing. The right-hand side, lower photo is the original. I just saw this ball at A1, got my attention, plus this very staccato, choppy like sky, not normal clouds. Look up above. We have the enhanced version, and it just really pull out, you know, A as being some kind of cloaking ball. That's not a natural cloud. We have a symmetrical object back here, you know, more symmetry and things hiding in the background. Lower left-hand corner, this was really interesting. This is a rainbow eucalyptus tree. This one happens to be pretty tall. But look at this thing diving down in, you know, so I'm just going to jump to the lower right-hand corner. Look at this thing. It looks like some kind of like a dive bomber, like plane. But you look at the color signatures on this thing. We've got, you know, royal blue, kind of indigo purple, raspberry colored, all in one. And it looks like it's coming down. I don't know what it's doing, but it's got triangles on it, you know, so I don't know if this is many different craft that banked together to make a fun shape, or it's one overall craft that looks like this. See what you think. But here's a tree, and this is in the background. You know, it's pretty big. This is a roof line below. All right, this one's pretty wild. I'm going to skip over to the right-hand side, upper right-hand corner. Look at this, original. What the heck is going on here? There is no way anyone could ever say this is natural cloud activity. Look at this zigzag and objects. And then we have one coming across straight, another one, and then bright white behind it, and then it's a little bit of a plum color, mauve color. You know, I have to laugh. It's just funny. It's very creative, whatever they're doing. It is funny. I find it very amusing. Again, I just wish I could see all of this without all the smoke and mirrors. Here on the left, you see the tops of trees, so you see the scale of this thing is massive. And down here, I'm going to say that this is one big craft that we're kind of seeing the edge of, and then other craft in front of it. But this one, I've never seen anything like this. Even, you know, through all my times up till now, I've never seen that zigzag thing. Okay, lower, I'm not going to blow over this one. Lower, you can just see this is not a typical, you don't have a cloud erupting vertical out of nowhere, like with two arms going wee. You know, you can just see a triangle in the back and a triangle in the front. Lines, you know, need I say more? Another triangle over here. Have fun looking at this thing on your own time. All right, this one was really cool. This started really low in the sky. Reminds me of that rising salmon configuration. This thing just was like at the end of my street, very low, and I'm like, what is going on now? Because you got this thing flying out this way. You know, I knew that's not a natural cloud, but I didn't know what it was going to do. This one's pretty wild. So to the upper right hand side, look at this, really dark, and then we have something going across here and something kind of forming down here. More enhancement. Look at this. I swear this is a cockpit with one or two people in there. You'll see on the next thing over, but look at this. It's like the bottom of a little plane and like its little wings off to the sides. This is a perfect circle, semicircle, or circle there, okay? So we go look here, and I think I blow it up even bigger in the next slide, but I'm pointing. I'm like, this almost looks like a figure in a little cockpit, and this is the overall craft. That's what I was starting to see with this. So we look even more. This is when the color started, you know, fading out of it. And then I go to the right here with a zoom in on this A element, which I'm calling the cockpit. Look at this, looks like a head and the body's slunched over. Maybe I'm reading into this, but that's just what I see. It could also be solid, and this is just the smoke wafting over this thing, which is probably the case. But I don't know. Is this maybe it's also the frame, and this is a void, and that's a solid little person. It could be looked at any number of ways. See what you see. I just undeniably though that's some kind of craft. And then look down here, it starts quote unquote disintegrating even further, and we see what looks like a separate element or craft here, and maybe a bigger one here. See what you see in that scene. All right, this one's pretty wild. This whole thing, again, no natural cloud just does this or this to the right. Explain what's going on with that little number. And again, we've got like a perfect symmetrical, pointed, triangular, elongated triangular craft here. All right, lower two photos, original and enhanced. Of course, we just see all kinds of crazy. If you're trying to say this is a natural clouded sky, no. These are lots of little cloaking craft with pure triangular forms, etc. All right, upper left, there's original and then enhanced. And what was strange was like these clear bits at the bottom, like they look like they fit in together like a puzzle piece, and then a totally different thing happening beyond them. And again, this explosion of like a raspberry color with these strands happening, like radiating out, these perfect sticks, and then like a golden color. Really, really wild. I think this was just the show being put on for me. It's pretty extraordinary when you see it in the enhanced version. Over here too, something weird. Look at this, it's like a tentacle of like a big sky octopus or something. You can almost see like little suction cups. I don't know what's going on here, but it ain't natural as far as like what we're used to being a natural cloud. I'm not saying there aren't big organisms even that don't have to be a craft. There could be organic life up there, like sky things. That's possible too. All right. Bottom right hand corner, I'm just going to gloss over. You can see the shape, I think. You can, know the drill. You see the shape and something else of a different color. Signature's happening back there that shows me that's craft. Lower left, I'm not going to go over this, but it does talk a bit about Amazonite and healing properties if you're interested in that. All right. This is one of the upper right is that, alternate cover slide I was showing you. And here's the left is what I spotted. So the original is over here in the upper left-hand corner. And I just saw this thing. It looked too perfect and pure. I'm like, what is that? That's not part of the cloud. It seems very crystalline, almost see-through. And then with enhancement, you start to see it even better. And you see something backlit in this quote-unquote cloud. And then we look up to the upper right and look at, that's this thing. It has a life of its own. So that's a cloaking craft. And so that's a cloaking craft. Then we have the lower left-hand corner and kind of chaos happening all over. And then the lower right, we start to see different, pure shapes and things. Okay, this one is strange. This is the moon up at A. And just give me a moment. Okay, this is at A. And then we have 8.1. Look at these lines. What is going on here? And look at the rest. I'm going to leave this to you to look on your own time. But we zoom in and look at this. Curved, and something swirling over the moon. What is going on there? That's not anything happening in my camera. And then we have this overall symmetrical shape with these little stick parts coming off that look symmetrical. A stick with this coming across, stick with this coming there. See what you think is going on. I have no idea, but that's like when I was putting this show together, I first noticed that. All right, here's another huge thing happening in the sky. I'm just going to leave it right there. And the lower right-hand corner as well. Do your own digging to see. We've got multiple things going on. We've got like this huge, it almost looks like a star out in the galaxies. And something swooping down this way, right? And these like craft bodies floating around. Fascinating stuff. All right, more fascinating things to come here. Look at all the different color signatures. Again, these are pretty self-explanatory. This starts emerging. We've got a pure triangle here at the lower, left-hand corner. And in the lower right-hand corner, look at this. I'm saying, okay, come on now, really? What is this? Look at this thing. I mean, it's got sticks and all kinds of things. And if we go up here, you see it down here? This is this thing, blown up and looked at from the photo above it. It's just this little piece. And it's really low in the sky. That's the tree line. And there's a roof right here. And then something bigger happening beyond and above. Okay, upper left-hand corner, again, real strange phenomenon. At this point, I'm going to leave more to all of you to look at and pick apart. I've given you the telltale things to look for, color signatures, geometries, altitude in the sky. In the right-hand corner, look at this too. That's a pure shape. Lower left, this starts to get really weird. This was off to the south, pretty low in the sky, and then, excuse me, and this is already the enhanced version. It looked more like this to the right. So, you know, color-wise. But then there are these like lines, striations that are these things here. This thing was just really strange. We're moving in. You know, what the heck is going on with this thing? I have no words for that one. Nor do I have any for the lower left-hand corner with enhancement. And the right-hand corner is pretty self-explanatory. Look how clear the trees are, and look how fuzzy and weird and like morphed these clouds are. Very weird. I've never seen clouds, you know, happen like that too much. So when that effect shows up, you know something's going on. And so to the right, we just see there's a massive, you know, pink glow back there with some type of big craft happening below it. All right, upper left is the original, upper right we got enhancement. We've got a perfect circle going on, weird stuff. Look at this. Okay, over at C, and we come down to the lower left. Look at perfect circles. That's an engineered object there. And to the right, we zoom in to see it a little bit more. It's perfectly engineered. Cloaking craft all over the place here. Okay, again, staccato type cloud activity, weird stuff. Watch where the, you know, the highlights of the color are. And you start to see some really weird stuff. Now this is the alternate cover slide to the third one. So over here, there's so much going on over here, I almost missed what's happening over here at B. And there's a similar pattern happening over here I didn't even notice till now. But look at B, and then B with the enhancement, and then down here, and then with a little more enhancement. And then I zoomed in on this to make that cover, alternate cover slide. Look at this, it has structure to it. There's intelligent design on that thing. And here we go, zooming in to see it, right? And there's even other little, I want to say other, either organic life or craft happening in even within this thing, because you see different color and you see little pipe ends. All right, upper left, this is really low in the sky, separate from another little cloud mass in quotes. And here it is with enhancement. Again, to me it's a craft. We've got straight lines, a lot going on in there, as usual, right? And down here in the lower left, you see more of a triangle. You see other strange things happening. And, you know, I zoom in. This one was really interesting because this was massive. You see the trees? This was massive. And, excuse me, as I looked along the rim, we jump up to the right-hand side. I started to see, wait, is it this one? There's another, there's a better image of this somewhere. I started to see more like perfect circles, you know, along the edge of this thing. So again, it's engineered, whatever it is. All right, this is a cover called Watch and Wonder. And a very interesting V shape happening here with other things beyond, different weird colors, very low in the sky. And then I'm going to read, am I going to read this one? This is another Words, Wisdom, and the Spirit of the Day page that I just posted to my community page. And it's just a reminder that we are living in a beautiful world despite what we might see with our physical eyes. We are in the middle of something. You know, there's the one world here that we have our touch and feel tactical 3D world, but there's also other worlds overlaid in different realms and different parallel universes and on and on and on. There's such a bigger picture to all of this. So you might want to go ahead and check my recent community post to learn a little bit more about where I'm headed with all of that. Okay, more cloaking craft. Up here is a lens flare. I don't have many of them in my photos, but that happens to be one. But anyway, again, same old usuals, odd stuff. In this case, there's like a bright white thing, you know, that's symmetrical, very near this thing. So I don't know what's happening there. Maybe you can figure it out. Another one poking out over here. Really just strange stuff, like a stick-like thing, you know, a triangular thing. More of the same. Here we have a triangular imprint happening back in there, but with enhancement we also see a huge, you know, warm glow. Weird stuff going on. And down here too is the original to what I just showed you with this thing over here. It's one of the covers. What's going on? That's a perfect V and sticks and, you know, perfect triangle over here, that kind of thing. Different color signatures. See what you see? Here's another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page. I'm just going to say that the overall thing is called The Gathering, Community, Kinship, Companionship. And again, this is just about, yeah, us all coming together, the gathering. And not forgetting that at a soul level, we are all one. We're this one beautiful divine spark. All right, more different color signatures, shapes emerging. Even down here at C, on the left-hand side, it just looks like a gap with a streak across. But over here, it actually looks like this might be an object. Lower left, I see something weird perched on the top of this overall quote-unquote cloud. And the lower right, we start to see it, straight edge with shadows and a stick or a pipe on top, another pipe. And so this might be just we're starting to see the machine parts on top of an overall craft, or there are multiple craft in this thing. Oh, here's zooming in on that thing that I said it's looking like that's more like an object with a shadow to it. It's pure white while everything else has a different color. Why is that? This is in the sky. This isn't part of a building or anything. This here is the line of a roof. So this is all happening in the sky. Here's that thing. Look, these are machine parts, undeniably. You got shadow, you got straight lines. Look at that thing. See what else you can see in this. I suspect it's, yeah, it's either a cloaking craft sitting on top of a bigger craft, or it's just we're seeing the top of the machine parts of something that's cloaked, and they're just letting us see some of the pieces. All right, more weird stuff. You know, this cloud thing at the bottom versus this brighter, you know, all this brighter activity, which are cloaking craft. Upper right-hand corner, excuse me, just a nice example. You know, they've got this weird thing with like a triangular thing, and we can see them here. Like a weird tubular thing down here. Over here, also just strange. You know, we see like it looks like a craft, a separate craft. Another one here. This one's really wild. Okay, this is one of the few where when I do the enhancement, like I do in all the other photos, it turned green. And what caught my attention was this thing. It was like too perfectly round. And we keep zooming in and zooming in if you follow my little cursor till we get to this. And what really wowed me was like, oh my gosh, I think we have a sky kraken or a sky octopus or something. Because look at this. It's like curved, but then these things look like we're seeing the bottom of a tentacle coming toward us, that we're seeing the suction cups at the bottom. And maybe that's the eye of the thing. But whatever the case, it's very organic. So this is either an organic sky creature, like an organic sky kraken, or it's a ship, a construct, you know, engineered, machined thing that is designed to emulate an organic-looking life form. See what you think, though. Here's one more view. So here's what I'm saying. Like, these look like suction cups at the bottom of like a tentacle arm if it were coming up toward us. And maybe that's like the eye on the side of the head of this thing. See what you see, though. All right, I'm going to kind of gloss over these. We're getting toward the end. And I was going to say, thank goodness. Hopefully you guys have been able to hang in here with me. This one is longer than I thought. I have no idea what the running time is, but I bet it's pretty long. Anyway, here's another case of a sharp diagonal line. This looks like a huge craft somehow. I don't know how they do it with the interdimensional stuff, but this looks like, you know, the top of some kind of, you know, some kind of object or craft, you know. And then lower right-hand corner is the cover page to SkyeGem Memory. Again, it looks like a little craft sitting in here. All different colors. Maybe this is a big ball above, like a glowing ball. I don't know. Again, some of these things I just don't know how they camouflage and camouflage the craft exactly. But between light and sending out wave patterns and, you know, dense plasma and particulate, there's just so many ways that they can camouflage. All right, this is another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page talking about Lemuria. And I'm going to defer you to reading these pages on your own, because then we talk about even more detail involving crystals and Lemurian quartz. Very interesting stuff. And more of the same. And back in the original shows, this comes from that show, SkyeGem Memory. I highly recommend you go see that show, because I do talk about some very interesting things that were coming from a website called sacredgemstone.com. Some very interesting insights on Lemuria and Lemurian quartz are there. Okay, so this is where that source photo came from for SkyeGem Memory. To the left, it doesn't look like much if you're not used to really looking for these things, but I started to see parallel lines going every which way and choppiness, so it told me something's going on, and that's when we start to see these things. Same thing down here below. We even have like a weird crosshatch pattern happening off to the right here to the naked eye. And then the lower right, we start to see bulging things, objects coming out, poking out with straight lines. This, I think, is a craft in and of its own right, a big one down at C.1, because it has almost like a crosshatch pattern with depth to it, like a relief. So very interesting stuff happening there, too. All right, this is another Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day page saying, remember your life purpose, starting right here, right now. And that may be just as simple as spreading kindness out there wherever you are and wherever you go. It doesn't take much, and I give some ideas of what you can do. Even just handing out tokens randomly to people and just saying this is for good luck, or, wishing you a good day. And you immediately light up the room and break the ice and have a nice little talking point with people who might normally just scurry about in their day. All right. more interesting things, different textures happening up in the sky, something going vertical. We look to the right, more things happening. And as we look down at 8.1, I see a weird little object here, and we go down, oh, sorry, let's go down from the upper right-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner, and we start to see this. So we see something with dimension to it and depth, kind of like in a triangular shape, lots of little weird things happening around it. And I'm just bringing your attention to that shape over here, very basically, to the lower left-hand corner. You know, when you can start to trace over these things with straight lines, you know you're dealing with hardened geometries, which means engineered parts and pieces. All right, this is more Words, Wisdom, and Spirit of the Day pages. I invite you to look on your own, just covering little messages from Vikings and Ratatoska from Norwegian, Nordic mythology, quote-unquote mythology in quotes. All right, down here, lower left, weird activity. So with enhancement, you start to see sharp lines and things. This is a really weird one. This thing just looks like it zoomed down with a vapor trail. What is this chunky thing? Look at this. You start to see little bits and pieces of machine parts poking out. Pretty wild looking. This was over a park. So there's like a football field, and this thing, you know, looked really out of place, like a rectangle. And here we zoom in on it, and I blew out the brightness and stuff. And you see little pipes here and there, little pipe ends. I don't know what this is, but there's these things flanking whatever this thing is. So it's some kind of object or cloaking craft. All right, upper left, it just says, looks like we've got an unknown planetary body or moon at 8.1. Because back here is where I'm pointing. We have a pure curve, and it looks like a big body. It's definitely looks like a huge orb or sphere. Okay. The upper right-hand corner, it's just saying, what is that? And it points in again on something circular. Looks like it has a geometry to it, like a face. And more of what is that over here down in the lower left-hand corner. We even start to see like a craft over here where my cursor is. This looks like a little craft lifting up off of another craft or something. And here it is. We zoom in a little bit more, and sure enough, it looks like a craft. It's got like a very rigid, you know, geometry happening in there. So what's going on? And oh, here's that thing that looked like a face, you know, or it looks like an outlet. Anyway, take a look in there. What's going on with this thing? It's supposed to just be the moon and some clouds, right? But there's something with, you know, geometry, and it's nothing to do with the camera. All right, Sky Jinx, this was just weird swooping down through the sky, and we see all the multiple colors, all the straight parallel lines and things, so it's telling you there's craft activity up there, and that's just the way it can really cloak by generating all the disturbance in the sky. Right-hand side, this looked really weird. On the left is the original, really just like a black and white gray scenario, but we do this and we see clearly like an object here. We see something happening down in here. Lower left is the original, lower right is the enhanced. This looks like a sphere. This looks like a massive craft. That could be something glowing in the foreground. I don't think it's a hole. I think it's something in the foreground. So again, can't have these kinds of light play and color play in this scenario unless it's something beyond like natural stuff happening. Oh, we're going to zoom in a little more. There's like weird little things happening on this thing. That was that little glowy object I was talking about. Over here, the left is the original, the right is enhanced, and look at this, we have a ship. We have a straight line. It's absolutely a ship, and I don't know what this glow thing is. So that's another craft illuminating, and we have a very hard curve here. So interesting scene going on. Lower left is part of this scene. We're looking at the scale of this thing. So you see where my cursor's moving around? That's this thing. And so this thing is much bigger, whatever's going on above it. Here we zoom in on this thing. Kind of has a little bit of a wishbone shape. That's a craft. And I'm not sure what's going on here, but I think you have to look at the overall bigger picture to figure it out. Here we go again. That's very elegant, whatever's happening. See what you think is happening in this scene. All right, that's that streak coming down, the original, and here's another view of it. Putting even more brightness on it to get at what these individual elements are. And the lower scene, I will defer to you to take more time at, but up here, where my cursor's going in the lower right-hand corner, that's where it gets real interesting. All right, some more, just more of the more. I'm going to go down to the lower two. Here, this started to look like an organized structure, like an overall bigger structure with where these light points were illuminating. And to the right, I didn't get at too much more. But I think if you zoom in on this one, you start to see more machine parts. And again, on this one, it's important to note the color above this thing versus the color below. This was in northern Florida, way in the distance, but I zoomed in, and then you start to see we have a craft. Again, more unusual stuff. I'm going to gloss over all of this. But the thing to note here is this is a roof line, and look how low this is. And then there's something happening here, and these little weird choppy things here. Those aren't natural clouds. So we look down here, this is the thing over the roof line. It has little sticks and things poking out. And then this thing in the background starts to get interesting too. Alright, this is maybe the tail end of something. Again, look at this is a roof line. It's really low in the sky. Different objects, probably at B and A. And zooming in on B, look at, we got parallel lines. That's some kind of structure happening in there. I think this is the overall craft here, and it's like piggybacking or behind another one here. And then this in the lower right is floating off by itself. Again, very interesting. More interesting things happening as we zoom in. Things are a little choppy. These are kind of floating on their own. To me, they're absolutely cloak and craft. Below, this gets real exciting. This is one long craft. So the bow is over here. I actually didn't mean to put this here. It should be over here. I mean, this is the top deck, actually, and the bow would be over here to the left. And if this is like the control deck, and this is the top heading toward the front, and this is a side wing. This is very much a similar style craft as the one that I have on the cover of part, which part is it? Part 2, I think. So the one that developed over 4th of July that I talk about in the earlier show. This looks like a bigger version of it. And so this would be the port side, the left side wing, and then there would be one off to the right, or starboard, and this would be your control deck, and that's the top deck. So to me, it's really clear. Look at these rigid lines. Oh, hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. So we'll move along. I think I'll show the context of that later. Anyway, more weird stuff, things that just don't kind of add up. This is zooming in on this piece over here. Maybe you see something in there. Lower left-hand corner, we had that weird glow again. And this time, it looked like little faces were appearing. So if you follow my cursor, this looks like the outline of a face with 2 eyes and lips, like perfect lips. So I drew that over here. I zoom in just on this piece, so maybe you see, the side of the cheek and the lips. I'm going to leave this to you, and these are like the eyes, eyebrows in here. I'm going to leave this to you to look at, but it's almost like this face of this woman, supersized woman is coming through. Now this can be looked at also another way. And again, this could just be pareidolia, but it also could be more. So here's that same face if we look at the overall with the eyes and her lips. But we can also look at it another way. If you look over here, there's another way of looking at it where this is the face and the nose and the lips, and that's like her hand curled in like she's holding a blanket. So if you look to the right, that's where I see it. This is going to take you a while maybe to see it, but I just saw like 2 faces in one. It was a really wild effect. But overall, too, we have this big, once again, big red glow up in the sky with white and cyans. So to me, that's when this extra special presence comes in, ET-wise. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. When I step away, I'm clearing my throat, so it's a sign I need to wrap this up. Anyway, lower left-hand corner, doesn't look like much. With enhancement, bam, some stuff pops out. Pretty rigid structures. Take a look at that on your own. Same thing, pretty gray with enhancement. Looks like something is zooming down. We've got these parallel lines, so it looks like a craft is like zooming down into focus here. Looks very alive and electric. And then look again, we got all these gold tones, all different colors in this scene. Really amazing. Lower left, again, presence of this big glow, whatever that is. Nice little uplifting message with the words, wisdom, and spirit of the day page. Keep shining smiles, love, and hugs up there. Okay, here we're going to revisit that big craft I showed earlier down at the bottom. So here's for context. This is like literally like right above a roof level, like off in the distance a bit, and I saw it, but I had no idea exactly what it would look like until I did this, So this is one big, beautiful, elegant craft, and here we go again. This is straight lines with shadow and a circle, and I mean, these are absolutely engineered parts. Here, this is called the Sky Visit because I had knowledge of a property for like over 50 years, and no one had ever encountered owls showing up, and they did, and they sat on like this light kit, and there were two of them side by side. So one was a little shorter and squatter, and the other was taller and like narrow. It was really weird. It's like, if these are the two of the same species, how could they both be so different in body type? Maybe that is a normal thing, I don't know, but I had never seen two, let alone one on the property, and they were side by side. Now, I did go out, somebody else told me they were out there, and I took a look, and I was just like trying to just telepathically say, oh, hey, little guys, how are you, you know, like just to nature. Let me tell you, I got a very sinister vibe off of these things, and I've never had that off of any animal. They just like had a piercing stare through me, and I didn't like it. I got a very bad vibe, and it was almost like they were trying to overtake the mind in a way. I've never had this happen with any other animal or, you know, living thing. So I pushed the energy back. I'm like, no, you're not overtaking me. So there is a phenomenon talked about in movies and all kinds of things about ETs taking the form of an owl. In ancient history, this is really fascinating, but I won't have time to read it right now. There's, you know, what the owl means, whether it's in Native American tribes or even Greek. The Athenians believed that goddess Athena, I'm just reading Athena, often took the form of an owl, so she shape-shifted when she wanted to present to the people. All kinds of stuff. Also, like newer movies that talk about, oh, these ETs showed up as big owls and they were really bad news. Well, I'll just say that these two did have a bad vibe. So, like I said, there's way more benevolence or neutral ET forms out there than negative. But yeah, there's some negative stuff out there, and I encountered this. So anyway, it was really, really weird, and I don't think I've quite experienced anything like that. But anyway, yeah, some movies, you know, go in the more horror direction that, oh, there were owls and they were ETs and all this. I didn't get it like to that level, but I got a little healthy reminder like to, hey, there's stuff out there and it's not all friendly. So just be sure you're on top of your game and in good vibration yourself, just when you might encounter some of these things, so they can't like try to run you. Okay, oops. All right, just what looked like a typical chemtrail, but when I put, you know, the enhancement on it, I saw there was another vibrant color. So I think there was a cloaking craft, cloaking again alongside this thing. So what I was talking about earlier, like the red herring, this like literal red herring, like this streak is just kind of taking your attention away that there might be something bigger hiding beyond it. Lower ones are just showing what could be just chemtrails or camouflage trails, because I think these are little cloaking craft hiding in the trail itself. Up here, pretty obvious, I think, when you look at this with a straight line, looks like a craft heading down into something bigger. Lower, you know, left two, again, weird random assembly of stuff, right? So I leave this to you to look into more detail on your own. This just looked like the profile of a woman, or a mermaid, you know. Over here you see like her chin and the face, her hair, and her like her arm is like going to the back, her front chest, body, and like her tail beyond. It just reminded me of Big Mermaid. All right, lower left-hand corner, weird shaped. If that's supposed to be a natural cloud, I'm not buying it. Here we are with even more detail, you know, enhancement here. It's some kind of craft coming in and out of state of cloaking with another little one below. Here, this is way off in the distance, and this again, these are just erupting vertically out of nowhere, you know, but that's clearly a triangle, and I keep zooming in to show you a little more. Something weird is happening over here at the middle of it. Look at the perimeters, also strange little bits and pieces and sticks are poking out, straight edges. What's this thing, like piggybacking on the side? You know, we got definite geometries and sticks and things all over the place. Down here, it's starting to fall apart a little bit and disintegrate. We can see some of the pieces a little bit better. And then down here too, what is this thing? You know, this overall thing. You know, looks like another cloaking craft attached to this overall assembly. Sure gets your attention though. No clouds form like that. And it was very close, very low to the ground. Okay, this just looked pretty and elegant. We zoom in, we see we have symmetry, you know, so it looks like a little craft is flying out of this bigger craft. Weird stuff here, these canister-like things happening. You know, again, this is a big sky with a lot of big craft cloaking in it. Then we've got this, again, just saw some weird shapes and color that looked a little pinkish. So we zoom in and more of that effect. That looks like a craft for sure. You know, come down lower. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I know that's not all natural, right? And then these are just some crystals, pointing at rose quartz, crocodile jasper, chrysocolla again, other things, zebradorite. All right, this was also off in the distance, and it's a clear stick. There we go. with, definitely some kind of engineering happening there on top of that cloud. Other weird, color signatures happening beyond with the clouds and the supposed sun. Left-hand side, just weird patterning. It looked like, something nesting in with like puzzle piece-wise. And here we go, we see it, It's overall craft shapes. Coming down here too with a little more enhancement in different ways. We really see it. This comes from a show called Tree, Sky, Sun. And I go over what the Celtic Ogham symbols are of the tree alphabet. There are 20 of them. So I invite you to look at that at your own time. Like the first one is birch, the last one is yew tree. We got some beautiful crystals, phantom quartz, and Lemurian quartz. And then I talk about a show called Yowie Central. I invite you to go listen to that. It talks about Sasquatch and encounters and other paranormal kind of stuff. I appear on episode 66 and 104 if you want to hear my Sasquatch experience. It starts on 66, and I point you to other really good shows to learn more about the Sasquatchy people. Here's a message from a Yeti friend, I say, that just was okay if we called her Sun as a name, and that happened on June 9th, 2022 at 3 p.m. So I invite you to come read this on your own too, to learn a little bit more of some of this wisdoms that can come through telepathically. Even if a being is like on the other side of the quote-unquote earth, there's no space or time in communicating with some of these beings. Oh, and a key message there too, though, at the very end is to look up and also to kind of find your star. So that may mean something to you. Find your star. Balance, heal, and find your star and focus. All right, more things happening. This is low. That's a roof line. And what is this? It's not a natural cloud. We zoom in. What is this thing? And then we have weird, these look like two side-by-side circles, like ends of pipes. I think we're catching part of a craft here. This is a weird split in it, looks like, So we're looking at the bottom of this cloud. Like a normal cloud wouldn't do that and come down like this in a curve. So we're just kind of looking at that curve element and, more detail on whatever's happening with that quote-unquote split. Just weird stuff happening with that scene. This one has an overall form that's interesting. Kind of looks like a person like leaning down on a boogie board and their body's going in the water. If they're heading out that way on a wave. A little bit of cloud play there, but definitely like a craft happening. Here it's sometimes important to look at the void, not so much as the solid, but what's happening in the space between. This looks like it's forming the perimeter of a craft maybe, or it's just a lot of different little craft making that shape for fun. There's a triangular back over here, triangle. All right, more interesting things, I'm going to leave these up to you to take a look at. Lower right-hand corner, really strange, right? These are in the same proximity, but two different color signatures. Here's interesting. Different things start to pop up. This is the moon down here, but then we have this reddish color on its own signature, so I'm going to say that's a craft, and one up here as well. Here's in the sky floating around. You could just see it look like a triangle. Another show I did called Cosmic by Nature, and it says time to question things. What do you think? And I do invite you to come look at this. It questions what gravity is, what's going on with the hollow earth, inner earth thing, which in the East is referred to as Agartha and Shambhala. References to a couple of books to check out, The Smoky God or A Voyage to the Inner Earth, and also just questioning why the apple is so prominent in our culture. We've got on every device made by Apple, right? There's an apple with a bite in it, hinting back to the Garden of Eden, like with a wink. We have Newton, who supposedly got his great aha moment, eureka moment, by being hit in the head with the apple. I think a lot of it is pointing to the fact, or at least my understanding, that the Earth really is in the shape of a toroid. And like this apple that I'm hovering around at the bottom, we have an entry point, at the north of the Arctic into hollow Earth, and at the south. Actually, this one's a better example over here. Entry into inner Earth, from the North Pole, an entrance, and the south. And the way the movement of the energy works, it swirls around, it dives up and around, and there's a chart of that energy flow somewhere else. Anyway, what's key about this slide is reading it and also looking at the images at the bottom. This one to the left is supposedly a view taken from like a space station or somebody of one of the poles. I can't remember which one right now, showing that it dives down in and there's something going on inside the Earth. This is a graphic of Agartha, how again there are two entrances, one at the north and one at the south, and there's a whole world inside with its own illumination source, sun source. Then this is a cross-section of supposedly going into, I think this one was Antarctica, and at the center of it was something that looks like, the chamber of a heart, or, like inner Earth, being a toroid and a central sun, and on and on and on. There's lots of little diagrams that point to the fact, I keep saying fact, but you know what I mean. Very strong theory that we have the hollow Earth. For me, it's a fact. And that gravity is not working in the way that we think it is. Okay, two different motions. The craft are peeling off in different directions. This thing's swooping down. It's just out of character, but the more you zoom in, you see a perfect cloaking craft with 3 triangular points and like a depression down in the middle, like a crater. This gets real exciting. Look at all this crazy movement, if it's supposed to just be quote-unquote clouds, and the color signatures as well. And then down here, it looks like I don't know what, but it looks like an object with like a ring in the center, So make of this what you will. There's a lot of different little objects happening in there. Another weird configuration. How does this thing this is more of a curve, and this is a little choppy, doing its own thing. This thing has symmetrical legs dangling, looks like something hiding back in here. Again, lower left-hand corner, what the heck is happening? I zoom in a little bit more, but it's very mysterious. It just looks like one thing comprised of a lot of different cloaking craft. Here's a little thing about spiritual meanings of opal, so I invite you to look at that on your own time. One statement that just came out to me, let's see, just 2 I'll read it, just as it can connect you to the cosmic consciousness, and it can also act as a holograph, a map of your soul. That's all very interesting. More strange stuff. I'll just leave it at that. And here we move along again. Just very odd phenomenon happening. I'm going to just be silent and again invite you to look at all this. Really look at the whole thing and zoom in. Again, return of this amazing sphere. And down below here, this gets real interesting. Look at E and D. So I'm showing you something down here. And this is what we get. What the heck is this? But it looks like pipe ends. And look at this perfect straight line on this thing. Again, looking at color signatures, this little wavy swath seems to be connected to some light-bodied ship here. Another one in the foreground, something happening in the back. Here's that, what I'm pointing to is B, like a white kind of triangular ship or craft. Something else happening here. Lower left, look at all the wild colors. Circle shape with like a hole in it. This one in the lower right, Team Sky, looks like a craft to me. You've got parallel lines, a point. That's like a little cockpit maybe. This is from a video game, and I invite you to look around in the world of video games that tell hint drops or predictive programming. And this one comes from a game called Stellaris, and I'm just echoing the quote from my Yeti, message from show number 141. And there was a big message in there to find your star, which I thought was a very interesting message. Here also in that same game, they show the shroud or the veil, and they talk about it, let's see. Let me see if I can. They actually do a very nice description of what the veil could be that we talk about in a spiritual sense. And here it is in a video game. And this is when you select a spiritual method to, how do I explain this? When you approach this, you're like building colonies and building connections. And you can choose to be like an empire that, shares with everybody or conquers everybody. And there's one setting where you can be have a spiritual approach. So that's where this comes from. Okay, left-hand side. That craft I just showed you, the pink one over here, it really shows up like just streaks of light. So that's why this gets all very interesting when we put the enhancement on it, because here it turns it into an object. And that's just another way that things can cloak as light, not necessarily dark lines. Lower 2 slides, I'm going to just pass over. Do look in on your own in more detail and zoom in those. This is the second sun phenomenon, where there's a perfect circle, which looks like an artificial object, but it could be a natural planetary one, I'm not sure. And then this is supposed to be the sun, but obviously doesn't look like it. So see what you think is going on. Or it could be that this is supposed to be the real sun, and this is some other phenomenon happening next to it. You can look at it 2 ways. Lower left corner is in North Florida somewhere in dawn hours. What I was looking at was like, oh man, they're chemtrailing the sky, how annoying. You know, they're covering the moon. But no, there's more happening. If you look down here where my cursor is, that's a craft. Multiple craft happening down here. So I almost missed it if I hadn't done the enhancement on this. So this thing that's purple over here, it's like bright magenta here with more enhancement. And so we see that's definitely some kind of craft happening in there. This is also North Florida, and look at this. I saw this in the sky, and I'm like, okay, there's no way that's a natural thing. And look at this. The more we do enhancement, we see, yeah, that looks like a craft kind of lifting up out. We've got sharp edges here. What the heck is going on? Also, now we're back in Miami. Weird sky, strange color signatures. Same thing in Miami over here. Just to the naked eye on the left, it's like, what's going on with this? So with enhancement, we see a little bit more. And it might be a couple of craft cloaking side by side. More strange things happening in the sky. And look at this. This I was driving. I had to stop and take a picture. But look at all these parallel things, right? With something bigger happening above. So these parallel things, you can see the little plasma draping over them, right? So there's our little craft. This is just a cover show to kind of give a reference of where we're stopping. I think this is one of the last few slides. Home Sky Star. And I think I had said that this was a red object, and I will say this is the one case where I think I was wrong. That could just be part of the lens flare. In this key moment, I had the same camera all the way up to this point, and I had only seen a cyan-colored lens flare ever on that camera that I had for years, and this newer camera gave like a reddish one. So my bad on that one if I said it was an object, and I think I corrected myself in the description area. Down here in the lower right, just again, look at the extraordinary unexpected color, and it looks like, you know, cloaking craft are happening in there as well. So now I want to say this is the end of the show, at long last. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for enjoying some images here with me a while. And this is just some little pancake medallions I had created for some, probably like Easter celebration. But I just wanted to end on like a sweet little treat. And it's kind of funny because these two, you know, they're flat. They could be like little saucers if we want to loosely connect those with UFOs and cloaking craft. But anyway, thank you again for being here. Hope you enjoyed part 3. And we'll wrap it out with part 4. I'm going to see the running time on this show. If it was too long, I may have to break it up into 2 parts, the last episode. Anyway, thank you. And as I always like to sign off and say, tremendous peace and love to everyone. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.